Meeting to order. Everyone please stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Okay, Ashley, can I have roll call, please?
Kressel. Klatt.
Here.
Vedbrunton. Here. Melby.
Here.
Jurdy. Here. Erickson.
Here.
Briggs.
Here.
Cavalier.
Here. Okay, it's time for the open forum. If anyone would like to address the council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda, may come to the podium. State your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none from council, chamber. Chad, anybody on the phone bridge, please?
No, Your Honor, I will close the bridge.
Thank you.
Agent logged off.
All right, we have a couple public information tonight, and we also have mayoral proclamation here. We'll start with the mayoral proclamation. City of Crookston mayoral proclamation to declare September 11th through the 17th, 2022 as National Assisted Living Week. Whereas residents of assisted living communities are active members of a larger community, offering their knowledge, life experience, and involvement. Their past contributions continuing to be a vital part of Crookston's rich history, and their ongoing participation deepens Crookston identity. And whereas assisted living is a critical long-term care option for older adults and individuals with disabilities that foster choice, dignity, and independence. Assisted living communities are committed to excellence, innovation, and the advancement of person-centered care. And whereas in 1995, the National Center for Assisted Living established National Assisted Living Week to honor the contributions of assisted living communities in providing long-term care to America's seniors and individuals with disability. And whereas this year's theme of National Assisted Living Week is Joyful Moments, highlights the incredible care provided by essential caregivers and the special memories created in assisted living facilities across the country. And whereas during this special week, assisted living communities across the country are encouraged to organize activities and events which celebrate the dedication of staff, the individuality of residents, and the deep connection formed in these settings while adhering to COVID-10 safety requirements and precautions. Now therefore, I, Dale Stainbrook, Mayor of the City of Crookston, do hereby proclaim this week of September 11th and 17, 2022 as Assisted Living Week in the City of Crookston. I urge all citizens to virtually visit or call a loved one, family member, or friend residing in any care setting and offer a kind word and spend time participating in various virtual activities to unite those from all walks of life in need of our continuing love and support, and to learn more about how assisted living services benefit the larger Crookston. In testimony whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Crookston, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim September 11th through the 17th, 2022 as National Assisted Living Week. Cindy and Val, got a proclamation here. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stand over. Or over here. It's okay. All right, thank you again. Okay, moving on, we have presentation from Molly with the Highway 2 corridor study presentation. Thank you for coming, Molly. And we got Matt here too.
There you are, sitting over there.
Great, well, we're here to give you the final presentation, I think, of the Highway 2 corridor study, which has been ongoing for the last 12 months. I'm Molly Stewart, I'm with SRF Consulting, a consultant team that was hired by the city and MnDOT to conduct the study.
Yeah, I'm Matt Upgren, that most of you probably haven't. District 2 project manager out of the Bemidji office.
All right, so we have just a short presentation to kind of walk through the final stages of the study, and then we'll go through the recommended layout that we'd like to present today as well. So quick agenda, I'm going to go through some study background, recap on the community priorities, talk through the alternatives analysis, and then discuss kind of the final stages of the study. So just a little background, this study was conducted with the city of Crookston in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. It's a locally led study that was with the goal to identify and evaluate the transportation and pedestrian needs of the Highway 2 corridor in Crookston. So our objective today is to kind of walk through where we're at in the study and the layout that we have developed and are recommending adoption and approval by the city. So the study had a series of, we worked with the community review panel, which was comprised of various members of the community. And through various meetings, we had 4 of them with that group, came up and identified some priorities to evaluate and develop the alternatives for the Highway 2 corridor based on, and they're highlighted here on the slide. So the first one is there was a goal to implement pedestrian and bicycle safety enhancements along the corridor, manage regional truck traffic by encouraging more usage of identified bypass routes, construct accessible infrastructure for those of all ages and abilities, reduce traffic speeds via traffic calming measures, improve intersections for the safety of all users, maintain on-street parking when possible, and finally, to upgrade the corridor landscaping, lighting, and aesthetics of the corridor. Just to highlight here, the study limits included both Broadway and Main Street from 6th Street all the way down to the bridge south of Loring Street, and then the segment of Robert Street to the river, to the east of where those corridors are. Our alternative development process included evaluating the various roadway cross sections. We looked at a one-way versus a two-way system. Then from there, we determined the design of the bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian facilities along the corridor, and then identified key pedestrian crossing improvements that could be implemented along both roadways. So we had an open house in May and presented the 2 alternatives that are shown up on the screen. The first one, alternative A, was the one-way, is maintaining the one-way roadway system that is currently out there today. However, this option reduces the travel lanes on both roadway or segments or both roads from 3 to 2. So there's 3 lanes of travel in both directions on Main and Broadway, and this option would go down to 2. Maintaining parking on both sides, and then would use the rest of the available space from the reduced lane to enhance the pedestrian and bicycle facilities. The second alternative, which was alternative B, was converting both Main and Broadway to 2-way roadways, and then with that there would be some change in parking and still some expansion of the pedestrian and bicycle facilities along the corridors. So these were presented at the open house in May, and the community was provided an opportunity to weigh in and vote for their preference. There was overwhelming support for alternative A, which was preferred by the community review panel and was also strongly supported by the public during the open house in May. So going forward, alternative A was then the locally preferred alternative, so we, and just to recap, that would maintain parking on both sides of both Broadway and Main Street, would reduce the number of travel lanes from 3 to 2, and then allocate that additional space to widen the sidewalks and the green space, and add a bicycle facility on both sides of the road, or along one side of the roadway on both corners. So a little bit more about that, what that bicycle facility will look like. Here's just kind of an example. It would be a sidewalk, it would be at sidewalk height, so there'd be a buffered space between where the parked cars would be and where the bicycle facility would be, and it would be separated from the pedestrian facility. So there'd be dedicated space for pedestrians and for the bicyclists. And it'd be on one side of the street, so it would follow the direction of travel. So northbound would have a bicycle facility going northbound, and then the southbound traffic would have a facility going southbound. Again, this was unanimously supported by our community review panel, and would also provide an additional opportunity for snow storage in the winter when it's not likely utilized as high. So finally, we are recommending also some enhancements to some of the crossing locations along the corridor. Through the existing conditions analysis of the study, there was a need identified for better crossing along and across Highway 2 at the various intersections. So the dots on the screen of this map here show, the green ones show where there's existing signalized intersections, and the blue ones are where we're recommending some potential enhancements. I should note though that none of the details of what these intersections will look like has been finalized. It will be likely determined as part of the final design phase of this project. The Second Street intersections, for example, are being considered or reviewed for potential removal of traffic signals. Again, that will be determined as part of the final design phase of this project. And then as far as what enhanced crossings might look like, it could be an overhead rapid flashing or beacon, some sort of signage to indicate that traffic should, or vehicles should stop to allow pedestrians to cross. But again, will be determined as part of the next phase of the project. So in addition to the items I've already noted, we are also recommending school speed zone be considered near the Our Savior's Lutheran School that's on the south side of the corridor. This would provide some additional signage to slow traffic down, and potentially there could be some enhanced crossings considered as part of this. This was a strong desire by the community and was feedback that was provided and supported by the community review panel. So a little bit more detail about the alternative A. It's in a minute here I'll show you the layout in detail, and we can kind of go through some of the highlights of that plan. But we've produced a very high level cost estimate, planning level cost estimate, to understand what preliminary costs will be. And I will note that the map on the right of the slide has got green and blue lines on there to distinguish between the roadways that are under MnDOT jurisdiction and the roadways that are under city jurisdiction. So it's important to note that there's two separate projects here. So there's the MnDOT project highlighted in green, and the city project that would be highlighted in blue. Now there will likely be coordination as this project moves forward, but there's split up the costs to show the projected costs for MnDOT, for the MnDOT project, and then the city project. And then as part of the MnDOT project, there'll be a city cost share associated with that as well. So total high-level planning level cost for the entire both projects combined is anticipated to be about a little over $8 million. The city's portion will be about $2.5 million, and MnDOT's portion is about $5.6 million. And as of now, the anticipated construction year MnDOT is projecting for their project is 2027. All right, so finally, I just wanted to conclude with our next steps for this project. We have a final document prepared and already out for draft review by both the city and MnDOT, We're hoping to finalize that in the coming weeks, and then we'll publish that on the project website, which is highlighted here on the slide. Then that will be available for public consumption. We'll wrap up our study, likely here in September. And then the next logical steps then in that is to progress towards design and construction of the corridor. And anticipated that design would likely occur during 2023-2026 timeframe, with construction anticipated in 2027. Great, so that's all I got for my presentation, and then I'm going to jump over and highlight some of the layout features. I want to turn over to Matt if there's anything to add on the presentation, or any questions maybe on the presentation materials before I jump to the layout.
I have one question on that. I know when we had some of the studies, our local lumberyard here, when he gets his supplies in, he takes up 2 lanes. And if you're down to 2 lanes, now what are we gonna do?
Yeah, so Mr. Persons was, he actually attended one of the open houses.
Yeah.
He had a very long interaction, I believe, at that with folks in the community. I know I spoke with him, and part of it is coordination with the city. Oh, thanks. Part of it is coordination with the city and parking. So part of that is in the city's hands, or that aspect of it. The other portion on MnDOT's end of it, there will still be 2 lanes of traffic. He seemed okay with the alternative as presented of going down to 2 lanes. And I don't know, Brandon, if you would add anything, but I mean, it sounded as though there would be willingness on the city's part to work with that business owner and find a solution.
We discussed with him having a designated unloading zone so that his trucks could park along the curb and not take up any traffic lanes. So
Okay.
I guess at the end of the day, I think it's gonna be a compromise from both parties, but from the conversations I had with him, he was okay with that option, so.
As long as it can be worked out.
Yep, we had those discussions, so.
Thanks, Brandon.
Any other questions before I jump over to the layout?
This part of the road that you're doing is still gonna stay State Highway 2, right?
Correct.
Okay.
One question I had is I see the bicycle lane as pavement. Is that, how much extra cost would that be if it was just, cement?
We could look at the 2 material types. There's gonna be a lot of concrete on this job, so it might make sense just to do concrete. I think, were you referring to that image that
Yeah.
Molly had? Yeah, so that was a, kind of a stock photo, just to give you guys an impression of what a curb separated bicycle lane would look like, but at this point, I don't view it as something that we're for sure doing as asphalt.
Okay, at this point, you're not probably putting in pavement or don't know yet.
Right, or don't know, we'll get into that in design, and, right now, I don't know what oil per barrel is right now today, but, I mean, there's a lot of considerations that would go into that as we get into design, so.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I like your proposal with the bike lane on the sidewalk. I was down in Minneapolis this weekend, and they've got that, 2-lane, very busy street. And you've got the bike lane between that busy traffic and parked cars, with people pulling out their doors. It just looked like a very dangerous situation. So you get people away from those vehicles.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just add, I guess, on behalf of MnDOT, this is a model that we wanted to pursue in Crookston here, where we have, we call it locally led. I mean, really empowering the city, you guys to hire a consultant. We're very proud of the efforts by SRF. We think this process is one that was really hopefully beneficial. You guys saw it as beneficial and being heard in this whole process. It's one that we, at MnDOT here, we felt went well, and we were very grateful for the work that the community review panel members put in. A lot of feedback, a lot of time that they put into this too. So, anytime we're talking about a change like this in a community, it's not something we want to come in and just you know, where you guys go to work one day and you look outside your window and find out we're going down to 2 lanes or 3 lanes or two-way traffic, something like that. So hopefully the process went well for the community. We're sure proud of the way it went and just the collaboration with the city of Crookston and SRF. So.
Any other questions?
Maybe with that, then I'll jump over. So I want to note that the layout I'm going to present up here is the one that is being recommended by the community review panel and is strongly supported by them as consideration and approval by the city of Crookston. It was vetted through the public process. We had 2 open houses throughout this process, plus I mentioned 4 community review panels, so we've gotten ample feedback, which is all detailed in our final study document, and this is the layout that is overwhelmingly supported, and hope you will agree as well. So just to recap, up here you can see the cross-section of what this would look like. It would be 2 travel lanes in each direction with parking on both sides, so similar as the situation is today, only with 1 reduced lane of parking. There would be then a bicycle facility that mirrors the direction of travel. And then the pedestrian facilities on either side would be expanded so that they could accommodate ADA design requirements, American with Disability Act, and then provide additional green space or buffer space between the vehicle traffic. And then this is just a graphical representation. There doesn't necessarily need to be trees, but there could be some sort of detailed aesthetics added as part of this design in that additional buffer space. Again, that will likely be figured out during the final design phase, and there could be a whole discussion as part of that. So I encourage you not to get too focused on what this graphic shows and just to give you kind of an idea of what could be.
Is there on the left side of that, where you've got that parking spot, is there gonna be a couple of spots there that are not parking for trucks coming off of Robert to make that turn?
Yep, that's a great point. So let me then jump over that. So just to give you kind of a feel of what this layout is, I'm gonna work from the north end to the south. So there was lots of discussion about most of the intersections. We are recommending to enhance the pedestrian experience with some bump outs, and I will caveat that with there is currently a bump out at Robert, and that is not as well designed as the ones that we're proposing here. I think there's some opportunity for improvement there to make it better, and we did run some truck movement analysis to ensure that the freight vehicles are going to be well accommodated and there isn't any conflict with the pedestrian traffic. So that, you know, was a big driver of the study, is the unfortunate accident that happened on the south end at Robert and the Robert Street intersection, and so that was really a key theme that kind of carried through, that we want to make sure we have adequate. There are businesses that rely on the freight traffic and getting the trucks downtown, even if there are some that maybe just travel through, but there still is a need. And so balancing that with pedestrians, but still making sure there's no conflict is really highlighted here in this layout. So with that, then you'll notice that each of the intersections, the reasoning for adding the bump outs was really to reduce the crosswalk width, so pedestrians have less time in the street, and that reduces their exposure to vehicles and potential conflicts. But then, you know, keeping in mind that we still need to accommodate truck movements. You'll see we've got a couple of insets here that show, and I know this might be a little hard to see, but we ran some vehicle, you know, there's some software in design world, without getting too into the details, to highlight the truck movements. So just show that, you know, under this concept layout, the truck movements will work, and there will not be a conflict, as in they won't overturn on the sidewalk or cause any issues. So along here again, just to give you kind of a orientation of what you're seeing here, the green on the green here shown on the bottom of the road here is the bicycle facility. Sorry, I take that back. Is the green space that could be buffered between the sidewalk. The light gray on the north side is the bicycle facility, and then there's, you know, the crosswalk markings and whatnot. So generally there, and then the triangles on here are showing where we propose some sort of enhanced crossing, and again, the details are yet to be determined. So 6th Street is a candidate for an enhanced crossing. There was identified a need for improved crossing to kind of access the businesses such as Subway and the and the Taco John's and the gas station that are in this general area. And then moving down the corridor along Main Street, 4th Street is another location, a key crossing enhancement is identified. You'll see that this layout also maintains all the existing access points, so there is, I think, opportunity in the future as this process and project progresses into the design phase to have one-on-one conversations with businesses to understand what their access needs are, to ensure that they have adequate access and there's no hardship done, and if there's opportunity to consolidate or rework access to make it more efficient for both the corridor and the businesses, I think that can be part of the discussion. So then getting through here, I mentioned 2nd Street is the signal that's currently exists there is being considered for removal. Right now, the volumes of traffic are not high enough really to warrant that need for the signal. However, there is a benefit it provides to stopping traffic and allowing pedestrian movement. So again, MnDOT will go through analysis to determine what the right solution is there, to ensure that the right traffic control is in place, that it functions as intended. So then finally getting down here to the south side, Robert Street again is the key movement here to make that southbound left turn here onto Robert Street from Main Street. So you'll see that there is another graphic to highlight how that truck movement will be made from the with the reduced number of travel lanes, and it will still be able to fit in without overtaking any concern. There could be an opportunity to pull back, or would likely have to pull back the stop bar to allow the truck to make that movement without hitting a vehicle that's waiting to go, that's facing northbound here.
I would just add too, this is an example of this is a planning level document right now. This is an intersection we can and will be looking at. This bump out and that stop bar location, we're showing it this way today. There's a park there. Can we do something with that bump out to pull that stop bar forward? Those are things we will be looking at, and the curb radii and things like that shown on this schematic are not to a final plan set grade, and just so you guys know what to expect as part of the final design, these are the kind of things we can and will be looking at to dial it in further. So.
Yep.
So the one thing is that bump out there, if there was something more prominent, because I just envision trucks driving over, if it's flatter, I just envision trucks cutting it too short and just driving over with their back wheels anyhow. So if it's like a 4-foot cement barrier there, so pedestrians can't
Get off.
get off there too, or so, I don't know, just.
Yeah.
I would agree with Celine on that, and the fact that, in the situation that did occur, they drove over that. So we need to see a different way to avoid that
Because if you look right now,
situation.
I think there's evidence right now of, even with the barriers that are there, it's being driven over now.
Yeah, and that's, the final design will be able to locate, maybe putting a planter in a certain location, or we can't do all final design in this part of the process, but
Right.
we'll be
But it is
looking at,
considered.
we'll be looking at all that in the design process, so.
Yep.
Did you see the barrels or barricades are being hit now?
Yeah, I mean, they're not maybe the barrels, but more so towards the
The corner.
corner
Like the
there.
curb, the
Yeah.
actual curb? Okay, yeah.
If you look at the tracks, even on that corner, it's black all the way up about 3 feet
Yeah.
into the curve.
So that's a really bad corner there, everybody knows that, and like, where we have those barrels now, that lane's not gonna go back in there. with the
Right.
Final design, and so there's measures being taken to rectify.
The other part of the thing, and I think we talked about last time, that maybe MnDOT could put more prominent signs out on Highway 2 on each side to maybe encourage semis to take the bypass rather, because I purposely followed a semi one time just to see if he was gonna stop in town for business needs, and he didn't. He just kept going all the way through, and I'm like, well, this guy should have probably took the bypass and
Yeah.
probably didn't know. He's probably following his GPS mapping, and that's how it told him to go, and
And that's not something that we would have to wait for this project to do. Um, So.
Yeah.
if
Is
the
that something
signs
that's gonna be addressed then?
So that's part of the recommendations of the study is to, I think it's a combination of working with the county and MinDOT to get better signage on their respective roadways. So the designated bypass of the county road, County Road 9, I believe.
Is
And
that Highway 2 out there a county road, or is that a
so
MinDOT?
Highway 2 coming into Crookston from the south is MinDOT roadway, but then there is.
Well, this is, I'm talking about the east and the west.
Yeah, that's, County Road 9, right?
Yep.
Are you referring to the bypass?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 75
That's the
bypass, yeah, yep. So I think there's multiple ways we can address this, and as Matt said, it doesn't necessarily need to wait until 28, when the design and construction happens of this project. I think education with businesses and internal to direct their needs and how to drive in the corridor, and then working with on the regional, trying to reduce the regional truck traffic that just drives through the corridor. All right, so then I'm just gonna jump to then the intersection we were just discussing, the Broadway and Robert Street intersection. And again, this would, a key focus here, this is the Tri-Valley building here on the corner. It's a very tight intersection, high concern, so we designed it with bump outs on all intersection corners to enhance pedestrian facilities and reduce the crossing. And as noted during the design phase, there could be further enhancements to continue to improve the safety of that corridor and minimize the conflict with pedestrian and freight vehicles. So along Robert Street, to continue the bicycle facility, there would be an on-street bike lane here shown on the south side of the roadway that would get, if you wanted to make that loop around or continue down to the river area where there is more, city has plans for future facilities. You can get there via the bicycle facility. So then going up here on Broadway, then it would still similar, the bike on-street or sidewalk height bike lane would be here on the east side. Green space again between the pedestrian sidewalk on the west side. Second Street signal again being considered for change as part of the design phase, and then enhancements at the 4th Street intersection. So then up here on the north end at 6th Street, then again we ran some traffic modeling to ensure that the freight vehicles were able to make that turn left, go on US 2 to the north or to the west, sorry, and making sure it's accommodated without any conflict with pedestrian facilities. So that is generally, and then again, there would be bicycle facility on street on 6th Street to just maintain that continuous connection of the bicycle facility so that they're not just ending at 6th Street. So that is generally, I think, the summary. I did mention again in my presentation that there's a school speed zone being recommended for the Our Savior area. If the city would like to proceed with that, I think that could be a good benefit to that area of the corridor, and then potentially considering enhanced crossings near that school, given the foot traffic.
You said you're gonna have a bike lane on Robert Street going down to the river?
So the study limits end at,
Down by Ash.
yeah, let me just jump down there.
Near the
So,
bridge.
yep, and so we're recommending to Ash Street, the bicycle on street, and then.
So the goal was to eventually connect it to the memorial pathway
Okay.
that's heavily used, so. And then, the bike Crookston, bike path areas go up, North Front and North Main and kind of loop up to Fisher Avenue and back. We're trying to connect those bike paths to utilize them in the future.
And what side of the road are you gonna put it on?
On what
On
street?
Robert Street, going down to the river?
It
I
would
thought it
be-
looked like on the south side on there, but.
Yeah, it'd be on
Yep.
the south side,
And
so.
if you're
you know,
taking,
Basically where the south lane of travel is, there's two
Yeah.
eastbound lanes on, it would go down to one eastbound lane,
and
and
one
then
westbound lane?
one east and one westbound, and then the bike path would be on the south edge.
Okay,
Maintaining parking on the north side.
Yep. There's also desire by the community review panel through feedback to, get down to the library that's on Ash Street too, yeah, pedestrian and bicycle.
Part of the goal is, I think, one lane going east and west on Robert with a bike lane is also a kind of a traffic calming to slow the traffic down instead of having 2 lanes of traffic going both ways.
Yep. Yeah, the traffic volumes are low enough that the capacity won't be affected on that roadway at the intersections or along the roadway. And as it was mentioned, it's a traffic calming, reducing the number of lanes, still making sure we accommodate the freight movement will help reallocate some of that space back to the pedestrian and bicycle facilities and hopefully slow traffic down a little bit.
Well, I sure hope that when you put the light in there, you put a turn spot in there for those that are turning going east. Because right now, you've got a lane going across and then the turning lane. And if you're coming from the west going east and you're trying to turn to go on Broadway, if you got a line of cars, you don't make it. So you need to have a turn stop or just one arrow saying that's green that you can turn on that spot or you're sitting there.
You're saying when you're trying to
going-
turn left to go northbound onto Broadway,
Right,
and you're saying a protected green arrow?
yep.
So it's something we could look at, but I don't know that would be needed in that case.
Well, I think it is, because I do that quite often, and you wait there quite a while sometimes. Sometimes you'll wait through a whole light. If you're gonna do this in the first place, just we'll do it and be done with it.
Sure. And so there's times we look at protected left turns, and you know what that does is it stops folks that are coming westbound and trying to turn north onto Broadway to turn
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
So you lose that free flow on the trunk highway. It's a give and take. It's good for one group of turning traffic, it's not good for another.
You could do split phasing too, so you allow just the westbound movement to go and then the eastbound movement, and that would help
Yeah.
queue,
well,
clear the
something,
queue a
yeah,
little bit. And-
something needs to be done
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
So that's some of the strategy I think that can be developed during the final design phase of the project to
Yeah.
ensure that.
Yeah, and, there's different strategies we can work on with this signal timing, and we call it level of service, so if this issue is out there that you're talking about, we should, now would be the time to address that.
Right.
And we'll look at that, if we need to change some of the timing for those folks that you're talking about turning left, we can adjust the timing on that device too.
Okay.
Right, so like I noted, the layout that I just presented is what's being recommended by the community review panel for approval by the city. And, again, we welcome any questions if there are any, but that's all I've got to present today.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So are you looking for a motion tonight in support of the preferred alternative?
Yes, so MinDOT's asking for that motion of support, yep.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh,
Chris-
I'll second, Your Honor.
Christie.
and this is for alternative A, right? That's what we're
Yes,
motioning
that's the
for?
preferred alternative.
clarify.
As you saw tonight, alternative A.
Yes.
And that's a motion to support that preferred alternative.
Is this also gonna be coming back after your final designs, we see it again?
Yeah, so, tonight, this is sort of a turning of the page, if you will, from our corridor study into the design portion of this. So MinDOT, we are looking for sort of the figurative nod from the council that you're supporting this process we've taken in your community to get us to this point, and you're supporting us moving into a project that's consistent with this alternative. And it's not binding to a dollar amount, or it's not the official municipal consent fulfillment that we'll need to go through. That will come during the final design portion of this project.
So I know that with the estimated cost, did you guys build into that estimated cost of inflation and everything that this will be a pretty accurate cost come 2027?
As accurate as we can get it, as with the layout that we have. And yes, we have factored in inflation. As everybody in this room knows, that's a moving target. We do our best on it. There's historical averages. Right now is obviously a unique time period, but yeah, that's been built into it.
It is a planning level estimate, so we haven't done any detailed design.
Granted, yeah.
You know, utility and all that goes in, it's all estimated at a percentage right now, so they're, just to put that caveat out there and,
Yep.
that we.
Yep, I hope nobody pulls this out, 5 years from now and points to that number, because it will be different. But, part of this process as we move forward into design is gonna be us, MinDOT, working with you guys, on some of the enhanced crossings as an example. Does the city want to, what are you comfortable owning and maintaining for flashers? There's costs associated. Are you interested in that? If so, okay. If not, those are things we need to work through, and that's gonna affect the dollar amount, so.
I think there could be future discussions on funding too. There are many grant opportunities and funding sources out there that could be harnessed as part of this too, that we could, the city can consider as we develop and get towards that construction of this project.
And Matt, you were gonna share some of those with us, right, as they come up?
Yeah, I remember you specifically bringing that up, and so there's grant solicitations out there. As of right now, there's none that we need to be working on, or the city of Crookston needs to be working on. But yeah, that's something that we'll be staying in touch on with you guys. I mean, this is going to be, it's a big project, especially for our districts, especially for your community. This is going to take a lot of working together with the city engineer, yourselves, pulling these funds together for this, and exactly how that picture looks. We need to talk about those things coming up here as we move into design. So yeah, grant opportunities will be part of that. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed, but in Bemidji, we were just successful on a very big grant for a big project we're doing on 197, and that was just us going after it, so.
So the motion is that you want support for the preferred alternative.
Correct, a
Option
motion
A.
of support for alternative A.
You have Councilmember Cavalier and Councilmember Jurdy for
Okay.
first and second, Your Honor.
Roll call, please.
Klatt,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Are you also wanting a motion supporting MinDOT moving forward with the project consistent with the preferred alternative? Is that what you're also seeking?
Yes.
Doing it again,
Motion
huh?
approved, what Corky said.
So this is,
That's a second motion.
this is a
I'll
second.
make that motion. I'll second it.
Got Clayton and Dawn. No further discussion.
Yeah, I thought we just approved this.
Do
What's
you
the second
approve the
one?
motion
For,
approving the preferred alternative?
Okay,
The second
not
motion is
design.
that you
MnDOT.
are asking MinDOT to move forward with the project design consistent with the preferred alternative.
and
No more
then,
studying
right.
the alternative, moving ahead with the preferred alternative.
But then we see the design before it's actually done.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Roll call, please.
Klatt,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, both motions carry. Thank you, Molly, Matt, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time. You bet, thank you guys.
That is a that question.
I'm sorry?
Said, how often do they check the timing of the streetlights around here?
Boy, I don't know if we got a set interval. Why is there an issue we need to look at?
You can do
It
that.
would be nice if you would do that.
Yeah,
There's some that-
yeah.
Will definitely be done as part of the design phase of this.
Well,
Well.
yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you,
much.
yeah, thanks. Thanks, Molly.
Okay, moving on, we have Terry Steiner. He did, looked over our systems out at the Crookston Sports Center. And he did some troubleshooting and came up with, I guess he'll let us know here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Like Gail said, my name is Terry Steiner with Wired Electric. We're a building automations contractor. We were hired to do a control inspection and assessment of the building automation system at the ice arena. And like I said, we are a building automations contractor. We've been in business for over 10 years. We are primarily a Honeywell Webs contractor, and this is the same equipment that is currently installed in the ice arena. Next, please. And just to give you a little bit of our background and some of the other public projects we've worked on. We actually have the controls at the Waste Management Recovery Center here in Crookston. We have several projects with Clay County and Moorhead. We have several schools for the West Fargo Public School District, including one that's under contract that hasn't started yet. Make sure I can read it. We have the new jail in Becker County near Detroit Lakes. We have several projects with the Moorhead area public schools. And we just finished a complete control upgrade integration at M-State in Moorhead. Oh, and we've done several projects with the Minnesota State University in Moorhead too. Any one of these I can put up as a reference for the quality of work, except maybe Moorhead, because we literally are finishing up this week, so they haven't really lived with the controls yet. Slide, please. So, quick overview. We were instructed, or not instructed, we were informed that there's been control issues with the building automation system at the ice arena since some of the hardware was upgraded a few years ago. After inspection, I think the issues predated the hardware upgrades. I'll get into that in my next slide. McFarland Mechanical recommended Wired to Building Grounds to come in and perform an independent assessment of the control system in July of this year. On August 4th of this year, Josh Holte with Wired, who's actually the owner of our company, came up and did a full inspection of the entire building. The following results are based on his findings when he was here at the beginning of August. We did identify several control-related issues with the system. One comment that was made to us is that previously someone had made a comment that some mechanical issues had to be addressed before the controls could be fixed. We were not able to identify any mechanical deficiencies in the system. Slide, please. So just want to go over the findings, what we came up with. First off, we identified several systems where the program seemed to be incomplete or not completely implemented to meet the sequence of engineer as laid out by the engineer. And we even found a couple items that we could not turn on because of the shortcomings in the program. Now, I want to go into this a little bit more in depth. So a building automation system is really a giant if-then-that matrix. So the design engineer provides us with a sequence of operation, a term I'm going to use often through this presentation, that will tell us at condition A, we want the equipment to do this. And it's our job as a controls contractor to figure out all the steps that need to happen to make that happen. And with a very complex system like we have at the ice arena, that involves stuff. That's not just say, well, turn on this switch and the unit turns on. That might be, okay, we're in heating, so we got to turn on the boiler. We got to turn on the pumps. We got to open this valve. We have to turn these fans on. We have to open these dampers, all to get the right operation done to make that system do what the engineer intended it to. We're finding when we're going through the systems, a lot of the networking addresses in the system, not a lot. So there were several networking items like where they could literally there was an error instead of it connecting to a sensor. So a building automation system is a kind of isolated computer network to itself. And like if you're connected to a printer, it might be plugged in, but if you don't have the right network address, you can't print to it. If you have a sensor plugged in, but you don't have the right network address for that sensor, you're not reading in for anything from it, and you just have to go to a default state because you don't know what's actually happening. We found some issues like that, where there was just stuff that all of a sudden it wasn't getting any information from, or that you couldn't control even though the program was there. But even a little bit more, more damning, we were finding issues where the sequence that was implemented didn't completely fall in line with the sequence of operations provided by the engineer. It was made to work where it was turning stuff on, but wasn't really working as the engineer intended everything to operate together. Now, I can't comment on how that happened and what happened. I can only comment on what the condition was when we looked at it in August, so I don't know what changes got made or if something got accidentally installed to an older version of a program or something. I'm not trying to push. I can't point any fingers into what happened. I can only tell you what the current situation is. But this is really 95% of your issues with the project. So the control system is a small computer system. It's only going to do what the program built into it will tell the equipment to do and when to turn things on. I noted as my recommendation to have Wired, or in this case, I guess, another control contractor. I wrote this up as more as a proposal. to come in and rectify the deficiencies in the control system. How that would look is actually coming in, taking the existing program, wiping it and starting fresh using the sequence of operations provided by the original project documents as the basis and using that to make a new program. The only upside I can really come up with this is that most of the hardware is fine. A couple of years ago, all the hardware is upgraded because when this building was originally built 10, 11, 12 years ago, however long it was, it used software based on an old platform called Niagara AX. Niagara is just an operating system used by building automation. A lot of different manufacturers use it. And they had to go to a newer version of that, and the old hardware couldn't handle it. It's like going from Windows 95 to Windows 10. It was a fairly large jump in performance and requirements for it, so going to new hardware was what would need to be done. But our assumption right now is when they jumped from the two different operating systems, they did a migration from the old AX to the new version, the 4 version. And our best practice is always to go through and make sure everything's still connected correctly and everything's communicating correctly, which it should by default. But it appears when that happened, it broke some of these network connections and network links, and that increased the issues we were having, but we don't believe it was being controlled correctly even before that. So yeah, the only way we can really address this at that point, because the deficiencies we've been finding, is just start programming over, but we can reutilize the hardware, which is at this point getting more and more expensive because these things have chips in it, and everyone knows what's happening with the chip shortage and everything else. So our costs on the actual hardware has gone up quite a bit over the last 2 years. And the fact we don't need to replace that will actually keep the overall cost down, with the exception of a couple specific items I'm going to reference. Point 2, when we're going through the system, we actually identified a couple of failed sensors. This is probably more to do with like just general maintenance. Sensors eventually will drift off calibration. Some will, just because of the environment, will only last you 5, 10 years. Some will last 20 years, depending on what it is. And we just found a couple that had failed. Some of those might be network connection issues, but there was one, like, as an example, the outdoor air temperature sensor, just reading what the temperature is outside, that sensor failed. And there's a portion of the sequence that says, if you're making ice and it's above 70 degrees outside, run some of that cold water through the air handlers to keep the space a little cooler. Well, on the day we were there, it was about 80 degrees, but the sensor was reading 20, and was only going to read 20. So that part of the sequence would never turn on because of that failed sensor. So there's a couple of small things like that. And then point 3, we don't feel that the graphics, graphics are shorthand for just the user interface, what the maintenance guy will actually log into to change temperatures and everything, they seem incomplete, and some of the graphics don't represent accurately the system as installed. Like piping layouts don't reflect the actual piping in the mechanical room. So if someone wants to go on that and go into the mechanical room, it might be hard to find some stuff. So our recommendation for that is to replace the graphics and user interface, and that's all part and parcel. If we were to replace the program, that would come with it. It's not actually, we couldn't do one without the other. I mean, we could replace the graphics, so updating the program, there's no point in that. But if we're updating the program, the graphics get wiped, and we'd update those as well. Slide, please. I do have time at the end for questions, but if anybody has any questions while I'm talking, please jump in. I'm trying to keep this as untechy as I can, just to make sure, it's because I know I'm in an industry that's small and not everyone's going to follow it. Though that previous slide, that's 99% of your issues. That's almost everything that's wrong. This next slide, some items that we would like to address that we found some issues with, but isn't necessarily what's causing your problems. I didn't see this, but when Josh was at your site, he said he's found a graveyard of old water source heat pumps that have failed and stuck somewhere in the ice arena. From my experience, those kind of failures mean either the water loop that's feeding them is either way too hot or doesn't have enough flow. Because what a water source heat pump is, it's a small unitary air conditioner, something that's going to feed just like our room, something like this. They're fairly small. And how air conditioning works on a physics level, it doesn't cool the space, it sucks the heat out of it and dumps it somewhere else. And with the water source heat pump, it dumps it into a water loop. And if that water loop's too hot, it can't reject the heat into that loop. So the compressor in your unit gets hotter and hotter and hotter until it fails. And at $2,000 to $3,000 a heat pump, that adds up a lot if you got 10 or plus that just died on you that you can't fix. So we want to address that. This is actually a really simple thing to address. We just need to know what that loop's doing, and we can address the sequence when we're reprogramming it to make sure that water loop is the right temperature. Easy fix, but right now as is, we don't know what we were unable to see the temperature and flow rate of that loop. So it might be the addition of a $50 sensor. That way, once we know what's going on there, we can adjust the sequence to get that water temperature where it needs to be. The only control issues that we'd want, control devices we want to replace, on the air handlers in the mezzanine, these are the big, like 10-foot long units that feed the actual ice rink areas. They have an older Lawnworks style controller. So there's two main communication protocols for building automation systems. There's BACnet, which is pretty much the industry standard at this point, what we use, and Lawnworks, which is older. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with it. It's just not a hardware that we would ever recommend using in this, and it's going to take us probably 3 times as long to program it, and it's a little bit older, so it's not as robust, but it's a very complicated, it does a lot. It's very complicated, so it takes a long time to program it. So we feel the time saving in programming and the extra benefit outweighs the cost of it, so we can have that included in our cost. On the flip side, the heat pumps I just mentioned also have lawn controllers, but they're really, really simple. So it's not the extra, there's not gonna be a lot of extra programming time, so it's hard for us to justify changing, so we would leave those in place. So we're just trying to get you the extra benefit on the air handlers because we think there's a cost benefit to it. And then finally, not really an issue we found, but whenever we do any kind of work like this on any kind of control system, we would go in and update all the software, make sure everything's current along with security patches, whatever the latest and greatest version is from the manufacturer. Slide, please. Last 2 final things. Mechanical inspection. So we're a controls contractor. Most of my guys are electricians and programmers. We're not mechanical contractors. But as part of setting up a control system, we have to make sure all the equipment does what we're trying to make it do. So part of that, we have to go through all your mechanical systems to make sure they're turning on or turning off or opening and closing, doing everything or operating or functioning as intended. So while we're not going to be no control contractors and go in and try to fix something, if an air handler breaks or a fan breaks, we would be able to inform the city if we actually found any mechanical issues. Now, in our initial inspection, we didn't find anything. I doubt we're going to find anything. But as part of this, we'd be able to go through everything and point out any issues with your actual mechanical equipment that we find, because we have to make sure everything turns on when we tell it to turn on. Finally, commissioning. We would highly recommend that if you have somebody come in to do the control work, that you hire an independent commissioning agent to go through it and make sure those fixes, those changes actually meet the sequence of operation laid up in the engineer. For a project like that, because this is fairly a decade past the original installation, we'd highly recommend going with the original design engineer. This case would be Martin Mechanical Design out of Fargo. I've done a lot of work with them. They do really good work. But those are the ones I would recommend. That way the city has confidence in what we've done, and then tie back the contract and to make sure that commissioning report is completed and everybody agrees that the system is actually operating as intended. So this is a recommendation. It's not included in the proposal we gave to Jake, but it's something we highly recommend that the city does if they decide to go ahead with this. Slide, please. Actually, skip this slide. You can go to the next slide. Oh, you went one too far? Okay, thank you. So quick overview. We gave Jake a proposal of what our recommendation is to upgrade the system and bring it into function. We would completely replace the program sequence to a sequence that meets the sequence as provided by the engineer. That's a sequence a lot. We would inspect all the network infrastructure, make sure everything is installed per industry standard. We didn't see any issues there, but we're still going to go through everything and make sure everything's wired correctly. We replace any sensors or other control devices as needed, so that's your valves, actuators, actuators for control dampers, things like that. And finally, we replace the air handler controllers, as I mentioned earlier, and then we would do any other work needed to meet that sequence of operation. For that work, we came up with an estimate of about $44,220. This is primarily a labor and programming quote. There's very little material that we had to include, which is good. On a project like this, typically, Well, last year, the material for a brand new project would be about half the quote. Now it's probably pushing more like 65, 75%, 70% of the quote because these little controllers have chips in it and everything with chips has gotten way more expensive over the last year. So if this was a new project, this would be easily pushing 100,000 plus if I was putting all the controllers in, because we can reutilize most of the actual hardware and just update the software and programming. We're able to keep the cost down to this level. Right now, I'm kind of looking at about maybe 3 weeks on site, someone physically on site doing work, and then double that for someone actually doing programming work, which we can do remotely. We don't have to be on site to do that. Slide, please. With that, are there any questions for me?
So how long has it been since this system worked properly?
I don't
Do
think
you
it
have
ever
that idea?
Could you go back to that slide I had to skip? Oh, okay, so Martin Mechanic was part of our due diligence. We went through we went back to Martin Mechanic, get any information we can get on the original project. They provided, and one of the documents they gave us was this commissioning report from 2011. From this, again, I don't know if these are issues that came back or what happened, but we identified 13 issues that are still open issues from 2011. And that's a rough, so this would be the commissioning report of the initial startup. So there's a, like I said, when the hardware got upgraded, it broke some network connections, making things more difficult, so they had to go in hand, so they had to manually bypass the building automation system. But the actual sequencing, the actual program, if everything was still the same as before, it never met the sequence of operation as that designed by the engineer. At least, let me phrase that.
So
I can't say
then,
never, it, from what we saw, did not meet the sequence as provided, as the engineer wanted the system to run.
Is it possible we're spending more in energy costs because we're not fully utilizing
You know what, I knew that question was gonna come up. That's a difficult one to answer, because we did see some things that are being overused, but also some equipment that's really not being used. So it might be a case, I'm gonna save you gas in the boiler, because I think that's being overran, but it might cost you more money and some other equipment and electricity, because that's just not turning on. So it's really hard to say, because we don't know what a fully functional building would have cost to operate. So I don't know if anything we do is gonna have a positive or negative effect on the actual utility cost to run the building. Because there's, like I said, there's things that we couldn't turn on. And so if it's not off, the most efficient thing is an off switch. If it's off, you're not using power and you're not paying for
So you
power.
recommended an outside source to help us manage this system, is that correct? Or you
No,
guys took-
what I recommend is have somebody go through it and commission the system. So they say, okay, this is supposed to do this, it actually does it. And so they can give a report back to the city saying everything they say they're gonna do, it's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
And you're saying you want us to have Martin do that?
We would recommend Martin. because
And
they're-
Martin's the one that put this in originally?
They're
And this is not what's working?
Well-
What's wrong with this picture?
Well, the thing here, Martin Mechanical laid out the sequence of operation. The design engineer or not the design engineer, whoever installed this stuff didn't program it to meet Martin's sequence. They noted several things in this commissioner report, but they were never held accountable and never came back and was never changed.
And now it's too late for us to go back on that?
You know what, I'm not here to point figures on what the guys did before.
So these are the guys that put it in,
Yeah,
and these are the guys you're recommending?
no, they're
No.
not, they did not put it in.
No, Martin's the one who
They're
designed
the
it.
mechanical engineer.
Okay,
They're the mechanical engineer who laid out and said, this is what this building needs to do. And in there, they said, you're not doing this, you gotta fix it. And as far as I can tell, nobody fixed anything, no one held them accountable. I don't know the details of the original project, I know there's some issues with payment and stuff, this is like fifth-hand information I got. And so I don't know if stuff just was never completed. We've looked through the sequences provided by Martin, and I've done a lot of work with Martin. They're a good engineer, they know what they're doing, and the sequence they provided us should all work, but it's not in the program.
so Wayne
I
or
understand the wording,
Steve, some of you guys that have been on the council, Dale, I mean, what do you guys think? How did the ball get dropped to where we first started building this place into the development of it and to where we are now? Is it a particular company that left us hanging? Was it a?
In the last 8 years, I've not heard boo about what he's just discussed.
Prior to what, and this is assumptions on our part, the program as in place worked well enough. It turned things on, turn things off, you know, it wasn't, didn't do everything Martin wanted to do. But when the hardware got upgraded, no one bothered to check that that links got broken. And that kind of, so the last 2 years, it was been 2 years, Jake, or 3 years? 2 years since they upgraded the hardware, though it just exacerbated all the issues because it wasn't communicating right. So they've had most of the ice arena in hand, so they bypassed the building automation system just to get everything running. And as far as, and Jake could probably talk to the contractor that installed it and who's been in his relation and how they've dealt with what they've done, because I haven't dealt with them at
So,
all.
because, you know, employees on our side come and go, and we need to have a company that knows this system and trains the new people that maybe come and go, and you're recommending Martin?
No, Martin, just do the commissioning,
Oh,
just to go
okay.
through. I mean, we'd be happy to do long-term training, we'd happy to go through
So is
whatever.
there, do we have to sign up on a
No.
yearly, or
No.
after you guys fix it and walk away, then we're having issues, how do you, do we have to pay you to
Well,
come back?
There'd be at least a 1-year warranty for any work we ever do. We can do a service agreement. What most places would prefer is just do a, you know, like, not an annual contract, but just an hourly rate. So we'd come back and do it, or we can do a service agreement. We're very flexible on that, however the city would want to handle
So
it.
an option would be to do a service agreement with you, so
Yeah.
like a yearly inspection could be done and say, hey,
Yeah, I would
this
say,
is,
with most, usually I do a biannual, like before cooling, before heating, to make sure everything's, you know, being commanded, open and closed, everything's shutting up, opening, doing what it's supposed to do. So, and then beyond that, we also would extend the software license. So with Honeywell, you get initially you get every update that comes out during whatever time frame your software license is. And so if we ever do an agreement, we just extend that by whatever. I mean, that's a couple $100.
so at the end of the day, I'm just recommending that once we get this fixed,
Yeah.
we have to have somebody that comes in, like you said, twice a year probably, and just look at this system and make sure it's being operated properly and.
Yeah,
I think anytime you have issues with it, I mean, if you just said we have a graveyard of pumps,
yeah.
that should have been addressed at that point in time, was why is there a graveyard of pumps?
And
We should never have that. I mean, that goes back to staff, you know,
Do you want me to
finding
do
out the
dead
long
pumps?
term of what's causing all these issues and.
For sure, but say, for example, say we have some staff that dropped the ball, we need a company to come in, because we're the taxpayers,
You know how many dead heat pumps?
paying for this, we need to have somebody that comes in and says, hey,
Like 10 or 12, I don't know.
maybe this isn't being done right, we gotta do this to make it work properly.
Did you say that you have a biannual checkup?
I mean, we could do that. I mean, we're very flexible about setting up either a service agreement, we can do that. We have some customers who just like to do an hour, they just will hire you for the day. They don't want to sign a long-term contract, we can do that.
So the specifics would need to be worked out. Is it gonna be an
Yeah.
hourly rate,
Yeah.
ad hoc, or is it gonna be a service?
Yeah, and with
agreement?
the service agreement, it's still an hourly rate, it's just a reduced hourly rate. So it's
But
like
with
you
that-
pay X number, and we do these things, and then if I'm up there fixing things, it's, whatever that is, it reduces.
With a service agreement, I would assume we have some type of a priority to get
Yeah,
to it.
yeah. And-
Right,
and
so
then-
instead of like an ad hoc type of, service, you can say, well, we're busy here for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll get to you and then, but if we have a normal service agreement, I would think we would have some type of priority, is that?
Yeah, and you would, but a lot of the stuff we can do remotely too. So like a lot of the calls I get, like I got a call, it was Clay County that one of their air handlers isn't working. We were able to diagnose remotely that they broke a belt, which doesn't fall under, but we were able to tell them that so they can send one of their maintenance guys to finish it because the fan was spinning and there was 0 duct static. So it's like things like that. There's a lot of things we can do remotely to diagnose issues and figure out what's wrong.
And the other thing, it's kind of like Steve said, he's been, whatever amount of years, you said first time you've heard of it. I would like an annual update
Sure.
on this system to say, hey, this is what's not working, because I sure as heck don't want to go another 6 years to find out that all this stuff has been not working for this
Can I-
many years.
Can I just get some clarification on a couple of things?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what I'm hearing here is that we had a company that did the software, read off of everything that Martin initially did and said, this is how we're gonna turn things on and off. They did not, when their latest update came out, make sure that things were still flowing when the update was pushed out,
Yeah,
right?
from-
And so what we're gonna get from you is you're gonna clean the system, you're gonna add your own software to this, right?
We're gonna replace the program, so it's the same hardware, same operating system, we're just gonna, the kind of if then that sequencing they put in, the actual layout of what does what when, we'd wipe that and replace it.
Right, okay.
So yes, it's the same, but yeah, yes, essentially.
And
yes.
essentially, I'm just wanting to make sure that this isn't happening again.
No, I totally agree
And
with that.
so by going with you, we're gonna be reliant on the way that you create things or push through your own software or the
Okay, so
software.
we're a Honeywell Webs contractor, and that's why.
So anybody that can has
Any Honeywell
Honeywell?
Webs contractor can work on it, which is why we can get in and go
Okay.
through what they have and review it and didn't like it. But we technically, if the program was set up fine, it's like, oh yeah, we can address this and do that. Any other Honeywell Webs contractor can come in. The way Honeywell does their system, we can't, when we do it, all the programming, software and everything is built into the actual equipment. So I don't have anything that's proprietary to me.
Sure.
That locks me into it. So you can hire like Harris from Duluth or somebody, a couple guys from the cities. Would not recommend the one who did this from the cities, but
Yeah.
but there are other Honeywell certified Webs contractors. Any of them could work on this. So
Okay.
you're not locking it into us. We're the closest one to you guys. Like I said, we got Duluth and Minneapolis, are probably your next options. But we are not. If we do it, you're not locking us in. If you're not happy with us, you can hire another Honeywell contractor to work over our work and make changes.
Okay, and so then at the end of the day, if we do go ahead and hire you to do the system, what have you, then you're suggesting that we go back to Martin and have Martin basically.
Martin or somebody else who can do an independent commissioning.
Yeah,
and
so check your
guarantee
work,
what-
right?
Check our work.
Okay,
No, that is an extra cost. Like Martin said, well, they would do it at just an hourly rate with a not to exceed number. They give me like a back of the envelope number of like 20-some thousand. I forget what the number was. 28. But that wasn't official quote. That was literally, I talked to Brian Martin. It's like, something like this. So that's not an official quote from them. He was just throwing out a number. He'd probably have to he would probably work something up a little bit more aggressively to actually get you an actual number.
sure. So at the end of the day, are we like every year going to make sure that like hire Martin to check
No,
your work or
no.
how does that work? I just want to make sure we
Once-
don't get where we are.
Once
Again.
once it's set up, the program doesn't change once it's implemented correctly.
So then what happened 2 years ago?
It was, 2 years ago, they upgraded the hardware and moving from the program from the old hardware, it's like moving from Windows 95 to Windows 10.
Right,
A couple things broke and no one went in to fix the things that broke. And so it never really worked before, at least now it worked as Martin intended it, but it worked well enough where people didn't really question.
right, and nobody checked the work.
No one checked the work.
So that's where I'm like,
Again,
is that what we need to do?
This
Check
is
the
like,
work?
yeah, that's what commissioning is. On any major commercial project, there's commission. You don't need to do that. We'd recommend do that to give the city extra confidence in the work we're doing is accurate and we're not just like doing snake oil and just throwing it at it. That way somebody else is telling you this actually works as intended.
So we can't take your word for it that you're doing it right, we have to have someone else come in.
You don't have to
Check
do
on,
it.
that's what you're recommending though.
It's recommendation.
That's what you're
It's
recommending?
It's a recommendation to give the city
The peace of mind.
peace of mind that works. It's
Yeah.
not a requirement.
Is there a best practice for how often?
So if we
you
get
would
3
check the
guys, we
work?
got more peace of
I think
mind?
just
Come on.
Once after the
So-
commission, that
so-
everything works fine.
Okay,
And then we come maybe.
and then
do-
if you update, right, because that's what happened
If,
this time.
if there's, well, that was a physical, actually different hardware update. We're going to
Okay.
a different operating system. Our best practice when we go through is make sure there's nothing broken. To go
Okay.
through, it's like,
So
oh,
is
that's
that-
not communicating, let's make sure we get the right connection, do all these other things. That's our best practice when we are updating the actual anything like that when we're jumping into OS.
So you're saying 44,000 for you to go and check on things that are broken?
No.
Another
Well, fix
22
it.
for somebody else to come and look at yours to see if you did it right?
No, they're
if-
wiping it and fixing it. They would be checking the work.
Yeah,
I'm
To me, it
asking him.
sounds like
I know,
it's
but that's what
to me, it
he's
sounds
saying.
like it's providing cover for, say, hey,
Well, if it doesn't work, if it's not covered, if the commissioning says this doesn't work, I'm saying you tie our payment into make the commissioning agent saying it has to work or I don't sign off on it.
So you're
Okay.
essentially
That is
buying-
typical for a large new commercial project.
You're essentially buying insurance.
Yeah,
Uh,
kind of.
I would say maybe peace of mind for the state. Again, this is not something you would go through us for. If the state doesn't want to do commissioning, if they just want to hire us to repair it, we will do it. We just recommend it for the city, state of mind, city mind. If the city doesn't want to, because it's a hunk of change.
so why if something doesn't work and we don't hire this other company to check your work, that you just fix it and say, well, it's part of the deal that we signed and,
Well, it is part of the deal we signed.
okay,
but
so
who's
I'm
gonna
still
tell you?
not.
But our
So give me
take
an
on it.
example of something that could happen from you doing the initial work and us not hiring this other company to check your work.
We're
What
still on-
would
we're
be
still
a-
on the
What would
books
be a
to fix
bad
it.
scenario of us not hiring this other company? So,
I mean, we would still, we offer a 1-year warranty, so if something's not working, we come in and fix it during that warranty period. But I'm just saying, after that, say something you don't realize it even doesn't work until after the fact. I mean, a lot of times we'll just go in and fix it anyway, just because we don't want to leave a system out there that doesn't
give me an
work.
example of a benefit to have this other company check your work versus something where we don't hire this company. So tell me.
Really, it's just peace of mind, just to know everything, it's meeting the sequence they intended, it's operating the way that Martin intended
I
it to
may
operate.
be old school, but hiring one company gives me peace of mind.
And like I said, it's a recommendation.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement for us to do
My
anything
theory
else.
is if you got a year warranty on, you fix it and whatever,
Sure.
why would we give
This-
him the 22,000 okay that to make sure it's okay?
This is a lot to comprehend right now. I think this should just go to a department head meeting, let them discuss this out, bring back the recommendations.
Yeah,
Sounds
and,
good.
and like I said, this is our recommendation, kind of our estimate of what we need to get done. We understand as a public company, as a public institution, if you need somebody else to look at it too. I mean, I understand that.
I think the one thing to also consider, though, is if you don't have this person check the work and say something as small as the water heater keeps going out, and we don't see that, and then a year is up, the warranty's over, and we haven't caught that, then that's an additional cost, right? So just something to
For sure,
consider.
but what
Find
if,
something that's wrong.
Well, a lot of water.
but what if
We'll
the
come in, like I
guy,
said, just do a service
After a
call.
year?
We'll just do a service call to fix
but
it.
what if the
Okay.
guy is supposed to check the work didn't catch that either, then we're still,
Agreed.
Again-
Well, they did catch they just didn't do anything about it or enforce it. So,
And this is second, third hand, but I heard there were some issues with the actual payments at the beginning where, at the first stage of this, where some people just, I don't know exactly what happened, but the project just kind of went sideways. I don't know the specifics of it, but that's just kind of a
Okay.
secondhand
For-
comment that somebody was made to me that they got about this far and then people just tried to make it work and get off the project, so.
right.
One of the things we can do, if you're all amenable to it, is we can have a department head meeting, discuss this. We can review the contractual documents that this gentleman would present to us. And if we agree to go with it, we could look at the warranty that
Sure.
he could potentially provide
And
us.
I provided just a proposal. I didn't provide a contract or anything like that for it, but just a proposal document to Jake from Grounds. And then, like I said, we could work with you on any kind of warranty or extended warranty or anything like
Wouldn't you
that.
suggest
think
this
that
should
that
go
would
through
be
the
a really
Park and
good
Rec
idea.
department or committee?
I would think,
So they know what's going on, they get the info, they're,
It can be brought up at park and,
I'm just
park
saying,
board
and then-
meeting too, but I mean, this is a lot of, comprehend for me right now.
Right.
And I just think, let's
let the professionals.
let department heads work through this, come back with recommendations and then we'll have more questions then possible.
And one of the issues previously was the claimed warranty.
I'm not getting in.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, so what you would be offering could be reviewed at the park board.
You could, I mean, You know, I actually have talked to the owner of my company, how he normally handles that paperwork, because I don't normally get into that.
Exactly. But it could be
But
provided.
I know for most commercial projects we work on, we're responsible for repairing our own work. I don't know the language that's incorporated into that, because typically controls are a subcontractor to the mechanical contractor installation, except for service and repair work like this. So I'm already a sub, so we're handed, this is your responsibility, so we can.
Yeah, we could sure look at that
Yeah.
language. That would be
Sure.
ideal.
Corky, I would just ask, when you guys do talk at department head, is that also review what has happened in the past, so we're not repeating that? Because it sounds like there's a lot of hearsay, but I'd like to know, get to the bottom of what actually occurred.
As much as we can,
Yes.
you know, because the department heads have switched over time.
Obviously, Sure. yes.
If this was an original 2011
Right.
difficulty, we'll have to take some time to try to dig that out.
Yeah.
And I really, like I said, I can't comment on utility costs, because I don't know what
Right.
proper operation, what your utility is gonna cost. I think, you know, getting the system running accurately, I think would be overall, the health and longevity of the building is gonna improve. But again, it's, you know, it's, I can't really comment to a lot of things. Besides, I know the current system is being bypassed for the most part because it's not functioning.
That's my main concern on this, is, you know, we lose ice in the middle of winter, it costs a lot of money to get it back.
Sure.
You know, it always happens at the worst possible time. I guess that's is this one of the reasons we lose ice, Jake? I mean, is.
Part of the reason, yeah.
So I mean, if we fix this problem, our chance of losing ice and getting somebody from Fargo, somebody from Minneapolis on a Friday afternoon up here, which is hard to do, that we, you know, that's gonna cost us a ton of money overall too, and it's one of those things.
Well, I don't know if this is causing your loss of ice, but like I said, like I mentioned before, your outdoor air temperature sensor is failed. And one of the sequence, because there's no real air conditioning in those air handlers feeding that space, but there's part of the sequence to shove some of the chilled water from when you're making ice through those air handlers, help keep the space cool. That's never turned it on because it thinks it's 20 degrees outside.
But I'd like to see that in your department head meeting too, is figure out what, you know, we spent a ton of money to second-hand people coming in and fixing this thing, and,
Yeah.
you know, if this can fix 90% of the issue, I mean, 44,000 peanuts in the big picture, I mean, compared to what we spend on a yearly basis of McFarland's and all these other people coming up here.
I would recommend, if you have somebody else come and look at it on the control side, they'd be a Honeywell Webb's contractor. That's the equipment you have. That's where your money savings is, because you can reutilize that equipment. Like I said, if this was a full commercial project, I bet this would be $150,000 project when I'm incorporating all the, you know, equipment that would be needed to actually go from the ground up to do everything. If you went to, like, say, Johnson Controls or Siemens, they would have to replace most, if not all, the equipment, just because it's not compatible with their systems. So there are multiple Honeywell Webb's contractors out there, but that would be my recommendation. Given, like I said, we're the closest, and your nearest is Duluth or Minneapolis after us. But yeah, so I understand if you have to, you know, you have to be competitive on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we're starting to repeat ourselves now. It's time to-
All right. Thank you for your time.
All right,
you.
thank you very much. If
Thanks.
anybody has any questions, Jake has my contact information. I'd be happy to answer specific things. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'd just like to add, like, when it's all said and done, I think us as a council needs to be updated on how these systems are working on a yearly basis, or even quarterly basis. I mean,
Biannually, I think we should have it. That's what we should have, the biannual report.
okay.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, this brings us to the agenda. Does anyone wish to add or remove anything from tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Clayton. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Discussion? Hearing none, let's have roll call, please.
Clat,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you,
Delane.
second.
Second.
Second by Wayne, thank you. Roll call, please.
Clat,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, we have one public hearing tonight.
Yes, Your Honor. Item 7.01 is a public hearing with respects to amending the City Code, Chapter 11, entitled Ward Boundaries.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address the council? So please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing. All right, that brings us to the regular agenda. Ashley, please.
Item 8.01 is the second and final reading of an ordinance of the City of Crookston, Minnesota, amending the City Code Chapter 11 by changing Section 11.01, Ward Boundaries. Councilmember Jurdy introduced this ordinance, and Councilmember Kressel seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Clat,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.02 is a resolution approving the change order number 1 for the 2022 street improvements, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So move, Your Honor.
Got Don and Steve, thank you. Discussion, Corky, anything to add to this?
No, this is, just been submitted by our city engineer to, approve this because there were changes made and it involved the, sidewalk up on the intersection of, I believe it would be, Elm and Central and Sixth Avenue where it turns into Central. There was additional cost for sidewalk, to be done there.
Does that come out of our sidewalk budget, or?
The change order that you're discussing right now was for, on First Avenue Northeast reconstruction. We had to construct 2 sidewalk steps on 2 homes to meet sidewalk grade. So what you were referring to, Corky, was,
A different one.
a different one, yes. So just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. Further discussion?
Yeah, does that come out of our sidewalk budget, or does that just get assessed to the project, or how does that work?
Project.
Project?
Yeah, it's assessed to the project.
Okay.
I got that right.
Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Clat,
Aye.
Ved Bratton,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.03 is an introduction amending an ordinance of the City Code Chapter 111 entitled Alcohol Beverages.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
Ordinance, I'm sorry.
It's an ordinance.
Ordinance, I'll get it right
It's
yet.
all right.
Got a motion by Delane.
I'll make that second.
Thank you, Christie.
And, Your Honor, this is having to do with the sale of alcohol at the Crookston Sports Center. Previously, or as it exists now, no alcohol sales are allowed to anyone attending or participating in any amateur athletic event at the Crookston Sports Center. University of Minnesota Crookston has asked that it, as an organization, be allowed to facilitate through the hiring of a licensee the sale of alcoholic beverage during regular or postseason hockey contests of the University of Minnesota Crookston, or any University of Minnesota Crookston organized curling contest. Very limited exceptions. Done some research, crafted it in that way so it applies only to those 2 types of events.
When you say contest, so say for practices, they can't have any of that?
No,
just
contests.
Contest.
Further discussion?
Is there any requirement as far as law enforcement being there or checking on it, or?
This will be done
License.
in conjunction with the University of Minnesota itself, Crookston. They have a contract with the city for the use of that facility, but they will be consulting with our police department. We've already had some talks about that, about how we cordon it off, how it's set up to maximize that there would be no disbursement around the arena other than in certain areas.
Okay, thank you.
And would it be then up to, say, the licensee that's in there serving the alcohol to be the one carding and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Further discussion? Okay,
Your Honor, roll call for the council will be on October 10th when we see the second and final reading of this ordinance.
okay, thank you, Ashley.
Don't vote tonight.
Item 8.04 is a resolution calling for a public hearing on amending an ordinance of the City of Crookston, or City Code, Chapter 111, entitled Alcoholic Beverages.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
Delane and Clayton, discussion. Hearing none, can I have roll call?
Platt,
Aye.
Bedbrun,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Yes, Your Honor. Item 8.05 is a resolution amending the American Rescue Plan Act Fund proposal.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this?
Wait, I think we should change this. There should be an amendment, or it should be changed in terms of its heading. I believe it should
It
be.
needs to be the lost revenue calculation in which that night that the department heads came to you and asked for your approval to spend those recovery dollars. And that is what I believe that Mr. Solberg is asking for tonight.
So the resolution title should be Resolution Amending the American Lost Revenue Act Funds Proposal.
Just lost revenue calculation.
Lost revenue calculation.
Amending the American Lost Revenue Calculation
Anything else?
Funds Proposal.
Well, actually, it's all part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So if you just said lost revenue, that is really what it is.
Okay, that's,
Calculation.
so
So-
Resolution Amending the American Lost Revenue.
No, just lost revenue calculation is all that it needs to say. Because you guys already, as council, voted to take that lost revenue calculation from those dollars that we did receive. And it gets filed with the government that way.
And that would also then be a change in the second, whereas a portion of the obligated funds are characterized as lost revenue funds. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So how do I want to read this motion amending the American Rescue?
Resolution amending the lost revenue
Calculation.
funds calculation.
Okay,
Yeah, the lost revenue calculation from the American Rescue Plan Act.
all right.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
By Clayton, okay.
Are we sure about the name here now, or?
You got it?
Further discussion?
You know, when I was reading this here and it says unrestricted funds, is there any timeline on when we have to spend this?
I believe it would have to be spent prior to December 31st,
Okay.
2026.
Okay, I guess I look at, you know, if it's unrestricted and we have other things going on and, you know, we keep looking and see, we're still working on our budgets. Can we say maybe use some of these funds for something else so we don't have this? You know, I've heard all sorts of different numbers as far as our levies go. Can we wait till our budget is set before we spend this? Can we table this? In case we need to work something else out?
Well, it's already been approved for the purchase of the vehicle at a certain amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we
All
took,
Jake is asking for, it's already been approved to be expended.
Yeah.
All he's asking for is not to expend it for the vehicle, but to substitute these items.
well, that's what I'm,
That's fine.
okay, I just, when I see the way our budgets are going, I'm just kind of thinking we should maybe rethink
Well,
some
then-
of this.
To answer your question, Colvin, this has already been approved as to the amount and the item. What Jake is asking for is, the amount continues to be approved,
Yeah,
but for different items.
That's my question, what was your reasoning to get rid of the truck? Just, you really didn't need it as bad now?
No, there's other stuff.
This stuff was
This
more
stuff right here
important
is, yep.
More important.
Yep, our edger out at the rink is 12 years old, falling apart. We don't have a scrubber at the pool. The one that we have at the rink, you can do maybe 6 laps and it dies. So there's just things that we need, I think.
Top priority.
Top, more priority than a vehicle, right at this moment. But,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Well, I think we're ready to roll. Where am I at with this roll call?
Any other
Call the question.
questions?
Question.
Okay, roll call, please.
Platt,
Aye.
Van Bretten,
Aye.
Elby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
All right,
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.06 is a resolution approving the purchase of the property where the red barn is located on Central Square, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Clayton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Discussion. Corky?
Yes, this is the property where it's the Red Barn is located. For a number of years, we have been renting that property. As your city administrator, I was able to contact this particular lessor, asked if they would be interested in selling. They would be. They're interested in selling. I said, well, what are you looking to sell it for? And she said a price of $30,000. I checked with the county assessor. The building is assessed separately, but the land is assessed at $29,000. So I offered $29,000, subject to its approval at the planning commission, which it was, and subject to your approval. So the purchase price proposed is $29,000. I checked with our finance officer, we do have that money available, and the seller is willing to part with the property, and it's indicated by the red highlighted area. We are not buying the child care center. We are not buying the apartment building that used to be the former gymnasium and other. We're just buying the indicated red area. I made an informal estimate of what it would cost us to have to move the building, should that become appropriate, and it would exceed $29,000. And where would we put it?
Corky, didn't we have like a 10-year lease on this?
We did have a 10-year lease, and it was ending June 12th, 2022.
Okay.
I contacted the landlord in February because of that, to see if, instead of renewing the lease, it would be available for sale.
And what was the rental fee per year?
It was approximately this year just $1,000 it would have been for this year. There was a 3% escalator per year. I think last year approximately $978 a year.
Was there still another 10-year lease?
No,
Chance,
no,
or
we
was
did
this?
not renegotiate. The first 10-year lease ended June 12th, 2022.
Okay.
that's all been surveyed, that whole square, so it's already surveyed to get the
Yes, it has.
cutout of the daycare out of there.
Yes, in
So it is
fact, that is in the resolution. You'll see the legal description there. It's been assigned a parcel number by the county. Yes, it has been surveyed.
Yeah, I've seen a 00, but
Okay.
Okay, further discussion.
Well, I know that one time we talked about that childcare building because it had the restrooms in it. So is there?
That's been
room or-
purchased by another
Right, but
party
is
that
there-
has a daycare in that building
Is
now.
there room or whatever up here to add restrooms to this building?
Well, there is certainly the property to do so. You
Yeah.
can see what's available there. But that would be a discussion for another time.
Right.
But yes, there is certainly that capability in terms of square footage of the land.
Right, okay.
Have we ever got a name for that? I mean, is it actually the downtown square, the central square? You know, everybody's got their own interpretation. Does that have to
Red
be a
barn.
legal name of what we're buying?
No, we're buying real property, and it's legally described there. Should the council ever choose to make a name, that's the name, that could be done. We're just buying the property as it's described.
And does that come out of our municipal land and building fund then? Or where's that coming out of?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
And there is money for that purpose.
well, I guess, you go ahead and buy it and be done with it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Platt,
Aye.
Vedbrun,
Aye.
Melby,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Briggs,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
8.07 is discussion regarding the old armory building, Your Honor.
All right, Corky, you want to lead this discussion, please?
Sure. What we have here is, we're a complaint-based entity. We've had a number of complaints from citizens regarding the situation at the old Armory building. There have been observations around the windows, the roof, or whether it's the foundation, but just saying, we think that this should be looked at. So there is a procedure whereby the city council can hold essentially a public hearing regarding this. Certain steps need to be followed, notifying the owner. There was a notice posted on the Armory building. It's my understanding from talking with Greg Hefta that the owner, Eric Rudnick, who I see is here tonight, got notice of this situation, and that's why we're here tonight, to decide whether this building should be declared to be hazardous, and there are certain criteria that I can go through, and if so, what should be done? Should the council order that it be repaired and give the owner some time to do that, or should the council order that it be raised, that it be torn down? That's what we're here for tonight. Our building official is here to tell you what he has done with respect to obtaining information and documentation of the building and the problems or difficulties that are incumbent with that building.
Thank you. I'm going to show you a little bit of pictures first before we start any further discussion, but that's the Armory building right there, 416 North Broadway. It's just 3 blocks down the street here. Next slide. That's facing east, by the way. This is facing north. If you look, the building in front is actually not the Armory building. The high roof on the backside is the shingles that are showing, that shows some significant damage and disorder. Well, they're ripped off. They're not there, either through wind damage or failure of the shingles to stay in place. Next slide, please. This is in between, let's see, I believe it's the Northern Lumber Storage Building, and it's basically the south side of the Armory on the left. Next slide, please. And just facing up on that same side. Next slide. This is the front of the building, a little closer. Quite a few boarded up windows, but there are a few there. Next slide. Same thing, just facing a little bit to the south on this view on Broadway. You can see one or two windows that are open for rodents or pigeons. That's one of my primary concerns. Next slide, please. This is on the back side, showing the gap between the building, that's the old creamery building, and the Armory on the east side of the building. Next slide. And this is basically what I thought was a foundation issue, but more I see of it and talking with Eric, this is a coal chute that just has sediment that's settled in and has opening basically for rodents and everything else within to gain entry of the building. Next slide, please. And again, this is the back side. That coal chute was on the north side, so this is facing north. Next slide. This is on the roof of an adjacent building, and I kind of want to point out that one wire mesh window. This is the next slide, is going to be showing the interior of the building. Basically, you can see that there's a lot of reflection here. I couldn't get a very good picture, but you can see daylight from the roof. There's an opening on the roof that's on a flatter portion of the roof that I cannot show access or get a good picture of, but definitely there's failure of the roof structure above it. And you can see the light just basically in the middle of the picture showing that. Next slide, please. This is again on the north side of the building looking down into the space between the buildings. You can see the roofing and the damaged shingles that are on the steps and the ladders, or excuse me, the step and staircase going up. Next slide. And some of the windows that I see that are severely, if you look into that center picture, quite a bit of that is pigeon feces on that north side facing window. Next slide, please. And again, some damaged roofing on the north side. Next slide. And similar, you can't see it as well, but there's very towards the top chimney, or excuse me, shingle damage there as well. Next slide. And just some overall looking to the east, basically same thing. More damage on the north side. And I think that should be about it. Oh, I guess one more picture on the front side of Broadway, seeing that roof damage towards the top, and I believe that opening is on the flat section of the roof over on the front side. So basically I just went through it and showing you what I was looking at for the most part. My main concern is the roofing and the pigeon ingress into the building. I sent notices in 2020 and 2021. I did get a response from Eric regarding that he did fill some gravel in that coal chute, which I thought was kind of a safety hazard, but there is minimal access to that area. That's not as big of a concern as I believe as the roofing problems and issues, and also the pigeons getting into the building. I did send a notice on the 1st of May, or excuse me, May 17th. I got no response. Second notice on June 21st, no response. The one thing I did find out, the tax information for his mailing address is different than, well, it actually just goes directly to the building. I have contacted him since June 21st, or excuse me, September 6th. And in that phone conversation, he said he would take a look at trying to do some of the issues relating to it, but I don't believe he was going to be doing the overall fix of the facility. So basically what I sent to him was in the letters that it's unsafe conditions, windows and door joints, the roofing components. These are all referenced per my codes and per the property maintenance manual that we reference for our codes. And basically, the structure should be kept free from basically rodent and infestation and prevention of the same. So what I'm looking for is some kind of direction from the council, whether you want to be pushing forward for a hazardous classification of this building, what we need to do with it, as far as if we pursue some other actions, either through a potential contractor coming in to do some work on it. Just again, some direction from the council.
Is there any evidence of people getting inside, trespassers getting inside and?
That I would defer to Darren on. I have not heard of that, but I think it's fairly well boarded up for the doors and access points around the building at this point, but.
So what is the building being used for?
I guess I'd like to hear from Eric. If you would like.
It's used for just my storage of my contract materials. I was planning on coming this week, but I didn't figure it out. So I planned on fixing the roof and fixing a few windows that have little cracks. Some of the windows, most of the windows, well, 95% of the windows are boarded up from before I bought it. And
So the reason that you weren't responding to the notices before is because we had the bad address, or was it?
Well, there was
Eric, could I get you to come up to the podium, please?
Partial was, he had taken a photo or something too as well, but I did, he actually contacted me about doing the stuff that I said I would definitely do it and fix it, so.
What type of timeline would you be looking that you would need?
I was gonna start this week.
I mean, was it gonna take a month? Is it gonna take 3 months? Is it gonna? over the
It
winter?
shouldn't take very long, to be honest with you, if I actually just take the time. I just gotta haul my lift in so I can get up on there, to get up in the front and that, so it just.
So is
So
that
could
gonna
you-
be,
I can definitely take time to do
Could
it.
you address, I mean, in this time, whatever decide, if we do a time, could you make sure all the codes that we have, code issues that we have are fixed?
Yeah, I would fix the shingles and board up the windows.
Well, one more thing, I think we need to look at the roofing. I think we have a.
Oh,
some
yes,
of
yes, the,
structure
when
is
I
actually-
had bought it, they had a tarp that was covering over that hole. And then with time, it's pretty much eroded away, so.
One of the options that you do have is, you can find that this is a hazardous building. And from the information we've received, there will be sufficient data to show that it's hazardous. And then you could direct the city administrator to prepare a resolution adopting those findings and ordering that it be repaired. And the time can be established. So a resolution, of course, would take 2 weeks to get on the agenda. There'd be that time. And then depending on how much time, if any, you chose to give Mr. Rudnick to prepare the structure, that could be incorporated into the resolution. I believe there is enough information and factual information to have this be determined to be a hazardous building. But you can give time to repair it, or you can order it raised. Those would be your options.
I mean, I'd like to see us give them a chance here. I mean, if they haven't had much communication between the two, give them 6 months. You're gonna spend all this money on drawing up a resolution. If he says he's gonna fix it, give him 6 months. Then he doesn't fix it, and drop the resolution.
I agree, but I don't know if I got the answer to my question. Was it an address issue of why we didn't get responses on the previous?
Do you mind if I speak?
Go ahead.
I don't believe so, because the first time around, when we talked over a year and a half ago, there was no response, or I shouldn't say that. He was responding, but he did not intend to make the repair at that time. I think in general, though, going back to the time question, I think given time for making this building correct, I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But I do want the power and the ability to enforce something beyond just not getting a response in the future.
Part of me is concerned that he almost has had some time with some previous, we've notified him of these issues in the past and been ignored. So now it's come to this, and it's almost like the last straw. So I'm on the fence as to giving him more time versus giving them time, I guess. And I'm fine with giving them time, but I just want to make sure that if it's not done, whatever the deadline time that we give them, then it is what it is.
has
We
there
move
been
forward.
something set to them with a set time as to when it's had to be done by?
No, I was just looking for a response per my letters for
because
the response to these.
The last time that I
maintenance
can
issues.
remember was one down on Washington or Lincoln, and they never responded by the proper time, and we ended up going in there and tearing it down.
Yeah.
And he contacted us like about a day and a half beforehand, and it was like, you know what, we've gone through this for 2 years, so I think what I would like you to see is if you got that problem, whatever, you give it to him, you give him a adequate amount of time, try to work it out with him, and then, if he can't do it by then, if it's a money thing, or if it's, whatever, he can come and plead his case and ask for more time, or if they need this, but I think that's what we need to do, is to put a time limit out there and say, it's gotta be addressed by here.
I have two questions. One is this partly being complaint-based. Are your suggestions addressing all of those concerns that have been brought forth?
I would actually have to be inside the building to actually know the additional concerns, so no, actually, I
Okay.
would say not.
I think my other question then would be too, I also think about as a hazard, if something was to catch on fire or something, is that putting our staff at risk as well, based on not knowing that information structurally sound or not? So I do wonder if this is maybe a question that needs to be looked at deeper, as far as maybe even looking at the structure inside to make those determinations before we make any decision. Because if we
Well-
fix a roof and the structure is not sound, that doesn't fix the problem of it being a hazard, correct?
It does not, but here would be the issue. This is not our property. We either need Mr. Rudnick's consent to go inside and look around and examine it, or there would have to be a request to the court for an administrative order allowing us in. We cannot just unilaterally go in and inspect.
But at the same time, we have the right to decide whether or not it's a hazard and raise it.
Yes.
So I think it might be to everyone's betterment to maybe make that determination, and I know that would probably be up to Mr. Rudnick then to make that determination. But if that's on the opportunities or issues here, I think that it would maybe be to everyone's benefit to at least have a better, more educated decision here than just the, outside looking and hoping that everything's okay at the end of the day.
My question is this classified as commercial?
Yes.
Okay, now, as far as some of the residential homes in the community that are
It could be
in
the same.
repair, it would be the same thing.
It could be the same. I mean, we have quite a few residences that should probably be looked at in the future.
And that's where the thinking is that, because someone's complained about that. So in case like a home that's falling down or beyond repair, if somebody complains about it, would the same action be taken?
We would try to take the same action based on the safety and condition of that home, yes.
And is there not a list or something of things that people have addressed or have asked us to look at?
I don't know if there's a list, but we did not take this action just knee-jerk.
Right.
There have been other, and we have identified at least 2 other structures, one commercial, one residential, that we would bring before you as well. This was the first one, probably had the longest duration. There has been contact with Mr. Rudnick for 18 months. It has not been remedied. So I thought it would be appropriate with our public official to bring this in front of you to make you aware of this, and you can decide. Do you want to do nothing?
So I tend to agree with Christie. I mean, if we just make it look presentable on the outside, but this building inside is still a hazard.
As I said, we'd have to get permission or get an administrative order allowing us inside.
I mean,
Well,
Greg Wood would be
Greg, are
your.
you a certified engineer where you can say this is structurally,
No, I'm not a structural engineer.
okay? So my other question is, so on these buildings, how many complaints did we get on this particular building from the general public?
Basically, I don't have that list in front of me, but it's been
1, 5, 7, 10?
less than 5.
Okay. I mean, it's one of those things all these years, you never hear anything. And then it's like, if we're gonna go through his and everybody else's, we got a lot of work to do. Because there's 50, 60 houses in this community that are in worse shape than this one. And it's one of those things, I think we're picking what you wanna do with that house or this business or whatever, because I just think we better do them all. We just better not take our downtown in one building and say, all right, this one, we're gonna make this miserable for this owner. And at the same time,
My
we got
job is
50
not
houses.
to make it miserable for anybody.
Well, I'm just
My
saying
job
that
is
it's
to
one of those things
enforce
that-
the
but
codes
it's
that are here.
complaint-based, right? So unless it's complaint-based, then we're not gonna go around picking.
Well, is five comments over 10 years a big complaint? I mean,
Is it 10 years?
Well, what's the
No, it
number,
has
Steve?
not
Tell-
been 10
Tell me what a
years.
number is. Say it.
2 years?
So we
I don't
don't,
know.
so we don't do anything till we get 50?
I'm just saying, what about the other ones that you got complaining? You're gonna tell me there's other places in the city of Crookston that you have gotten
Right, but
5
it's,
complaints from?
again, it's complaint based, so I mean,
Well,
if you get,
how come
if,
we've never seen those in front of us? That's what I'm saying.
maybe nobody's complained about them, I don't know.
Well,
So Greg, I would like to have
There's
you,
places that we've gotten 5 complaints
this-
from in Crookston.
Well, I guess my other question is, then you do nothing, Steve? Is that your
No, I'm
suggestion?
not saying that, but I'm just saying,
But what are you saying, though?
we need to get something rolling on all of them.
Agreed.
That's what I'm
Would
saying.
anybody,
Sure.
would anybody else like to just see it taken care of by our building inspector? And having the authority to address the problem with the owner?
Yeah.
And if there's nothing done immediately or whatever, or handshake, that he puts it in writing, gives them a deadline, and then that's what we go by. And if they got a question, then they can come up here and arm wrestle it here. But I'm just saying, if you give it to him and have him put a due date on it, there's where you got it. Right now, you don't have anything. And the last one that I can remember we did, they gave him a drop dead rate, or date of when to have that back porch or back garage taken off of, and they never did. And I lost a good golfing buddy over that, so I know what happens. They
Greg,
don't
would,
like this complaint-driven stuff, but
Greg, with
but
Mr.
you're gonna
Melby's,
have to do it.
with Mr. Melby's recommendation, what do you think about that?
That sounds great. I guess going back to Steve's recommendation that how to pick and choose, but it's not so much pick and choose, it's just what's on my plate at that time. And beyond that, I think, my goal is to create better residents, better commercial buildings within the city of Crookston. If I see progress and I see some weight behind it from the city council saying, let's improve the buildings that are there, that's what I'm looking for. Mr. Rudnick here is, if he shows me improvement and we give a timeline and we see actual improvement and we can't get it all done at one time, I would like the authority to have, give him the time to make it correct. But at the same time, we do need to have some kind of a guideline for when that's gonna be done.
I
That's
think
what I'm
that's
looking
fair
for.
enough, and that's why we got the department head to take care of that, to address
Right.
those issues.
I think you should be given the power to do that. It's your job to do that, so if you can, work it, excuse me. If you could work that out with the owner and get a reasonable timeline, so
I
forth.
hated on this was the legalities of it. It's like, we're gonna draft up something, legality thing. We haven't really given them a chance. I mean,
Yeah. give
Okay,
it a
let's,
chance.
That's what I'm saying with that,
Consensus is to give them time to fix what Greg has got on his list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eric, you're a contractor for this here. How long do you think it'll take you to get that done?
Well, I will,
And give yourself plenty of time to do it. How long do you think it'll take?
I mean, if I didn't go to work and just worked on it,
Well, no, I
Probably take
mean,
me-
could you get it done in a month, 2 months, 3 months?
I should be able to get it done within a month.
Within a month?
Yeah,
Okay, so if we give you 2 months, that should be great plenty then.
plenty.
Okay, I'll make a recommendation. We set them a 2-month timeline to fix the problems that Greg's got and go from there.
So,
Yeah, I'll make that a
I
motion.
think it's consensus. You can't have a,
no, what I can do is I can draw up a resolution for your approval next time.
Why would we need a resolution if we all have an
Because
agreement
if
to
he
that?
doesn't do it,
Yeah.
then we're back here doing the same thing we're doing tonight.
So you can enforce it.
Yeah.
We can enforce.
Yeah, I'd
it.
want see something like that.
Yeah, that would be good.
But you're okay with 2 months then? Okay.
And 2 months, I'll make the resolution, finding that it's dilapidated, it's got decayed, rotted material, and that you are saying that it must be completely renovated to our public officials' satisfaction
Yeah.
on or before
A certain date.
November 12th.
Okay. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, I'll fix
That'll
the
work?
windows and the roof, but
Yep.
I'm not gonna go in and gut the place.
So let him work with
Exactly.
him
I'm not
To
gonna-
his
to rectify it.
satisfaction.
It's a
and we're
storage
good.
building, I'm not gutting the place to.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
I would agree with that, the
Yeah.
roofing and the windows, yes, absolutely.
And to the satisfaction of our public official.
Okay.
Can do that.
Yep.
Thank
Fine
you.
with me. I'll make that a motion.
thank you. I'll just do that.
Not a motion.
Okay, whatever you need to do, do it.
You just did it.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Question.
Thank you.
Going forward, I mean, instead of dragging out and dragging out and dragging out, like it seems like this one has, what do we do in the future going forward with no responses? And I mean,
That's what I was actually,
You
I
give
think
'em-
this is the test case, let's put it that way.
One of the first things that we have learned from this case is we have to find all sources that we can find to locate people who don't respond. This is a particularly instructive because we used what we could use. We used what we had until we finally were able to contact Mr. Rudnick, I believe by phone. But the address that was given obviously wasn't where he lived, so we had to track that down. The next number, we do know the owners, we do know their telephone numbers, and they will be given more notice both. I asked Greg to send them out certified mail, snail mail, and if we have an email address, also email.
But just so you know, though, it is not required that I do mail, email.
It is
It's
not.
just the tax address is all
courtesy.
that's
well,
required.
it must be because when it come here, when you're not getting a response, it sounds to me like we're gonna request that. So I would just do that initially anyhow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a good idea.
And that's why we did it that way, or that's why we attempted to do it, and we've done it in other cases.
We're gonna ask him to use whatever means to get a hold of them
And I will do that in
and
the
let them
future.
know.
So is there a plan to start working on a system that we're gonna use on a regular basis for stuff like this?
Yes, there is.
I do have that. It's a first and second notification letters, but also prior to that happening,
I
notification.
guess I don't wanna see it go a year and a half, or 2 years before it comes here. I mean,
I understand.
eventually we need to address this, sooner than later, I guess.
Right, and as a building official, I don't want to be coming with every structure
Right, no, I
out
get
there
that, but
either.
at the same time, I just don't, we're gonna start talking litigation, different things. When this is the first we heard of it, I don't think that we should be in that position to say, all right, we gotta do legal action now because this, you've been working on it for 2 years and we heard about it tonight. That's what I'm saying. And I'd just like to see a little more, follow-up or whatever. So I'd say, hey, I'm working on this. This guy's been a year and a half or a year, 6 months, I don't care, or whatever. But if you can't get hold of something, it's gonna be an issue. I think we need to know about it sooner than later.
Oh,
Great.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay. Report, start with Corky.
Well, as you can see, it's been a busy 3 weeks, actually. I've had meetings with Greg on fence issues and citizens. I've had meetings with Tri-Valley. We had a police officer interview. I've had meetings regarding the library roof with Chris Boyk and others. Met twice with Carrie Kirschbaum, our new EDA director. Did Valley Talk. We've had meetings with DCDP, webinar on property taxes, Zoom meetings with the Highway 2 corridor. We've had our audit, met with Mark Landa at the chamber. A number of us and the department heads had a meeting with FEMA regarding damage assessments. I've met with those concerned citizens about the food truck ordinance and met with various council members of you to discuss various topics. And as you may appreciate, we've had a number of meetings regarding budget, which you'll hear some results here in a few minutes. So it's been a busy week, 3 weeks.
All right, thanks, Corky. Darren, anything tonight?
Just real quick, school's back in session. First week went off very good. Just a few minor incidents at the schools. We responded to nearly 500 calls in the last 3 weeks. I was notified last week we were being audited by the Minnesota Peace Officer and Standard Board, Post Board as we call it. They do one typically about every 3 years. It has been 6 years since our last audit. I have been through them in the past. Basically, they're going to audit our training records for mandated training, candidate backgrounds. We background a candidate for police officer. We have to make sure to check all the check boxes for that, and then state mandated policies. In the last couple weeks, we've had in-house firearms and less lethal force training. Some officers and staff still attending training last week and this week and next week. Started planning committee with Linda Morgan, Crookston High School Leo Club Director, as far as a Halloween party this year and what that might look like. In the last couple years, we've done a drive-through Halloween party at the Crookston High School because of COVID. We're possibly leaning towards that again this year, depending on the risk level in the county as that time nears. Corky briefly mentioned, we interviewed a police officer candidate last week. Was it last week, I believe? Background's looking really good. We're wrapping that up. We are expediting them as fast as we can when they come across our desk. I would say barring unforeseen circumstances, we would hope to make a job offer later this week, at latest early next week. The candidate is also excited about Crookston, excited about coming here, so it's nice to see. I hosted a Region 1 and 2 Chiefs meeting last week at City Hall, the week prior. Again, Region 1 is Bemidji, Park Rapids, and everything northwest corner of the state. Same topics everybody is dealing with, the hiring issue, finding candidates. Pretty much I would say everybody around the area is 1 to 4 officers short. Deputy Chief Nelson and I have been reaching out to local colleges throughout the area. We're getting signed up to participate in job fairs. So as the college season progresses, we will be attending those and going on the road in attempts to recruit candidates to, if we do hire this one officer next week or this week, we'd still be 1 short, so working on that as hard as we can. Any questions or anything? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Tim?
Thank you, Your Honor. Corky did mention that we did have a phone conversation with FEMA. We started out the process working with our, I'd say our case manager, so to say. It went really well. She gathered a whole bunch of information on our event and wants us to finish putting together all of our expenses. She did give us good information that we should be getting pretty much 100% of our money back between the FEMA and the state, so we're really glad to hear that. She'll be making a trip up here on Thursday, September 29th, and that's when we're really going to start digging into the dollar amounts in our event. I did get a call from a secretary, so to say, our co-worker of Rob Zapia. I believe that's his, how you pronounce his last name. He's head of operations for the Corps of Engineers, and he's going to try to make a visit this week. So I'll be meeting with him, and hopefully we can, I just found this out late today, so I'm going to be talking with Brandon and Corky and the other players, and maybe we can talk to him about some of our issues that we have and see what we can do with that. So that's some good news. Hopefully that goes well. We've been in the schools getting an inspection, taking care of all those to make sure all of our kiddos are in a safe location, which the schools really do a good job on that. Some of the firefighters and their families set up another 9/11 display outside of the fire station in honor of fallen firefighters during the horrible events that happened on September 11th. And I'll be going to a emergency management training from Sunday through Wednesday of this coming week here. So if anything comes up on any of this, please just get a hold of me. Any questions for me? All right,
Thanks,
thank
Tim.
you.
Ryan?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Chad, anything?
Yes, Your Honor.
council. I'll keep it very brief. I just want to introduce you to our newest information technology technician, Zach Governale. He's coming up on a month here with the city. He's been very involved with many of our IT systems, and he was the man responsible for the new lighting that you see here and are enjoying during council. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Zach Governelli. Live in Grand Forks, so I get to make the nice drive here every day, but it's worth it. So I'm about a month in and enjoying it. So if you guys need any help, I'm available whenever. So
Welcome.
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 Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Brandon?
The street improvements are to the grass stage finally, so I know Record started prepping some of the grounds, and we'll be starting sodding soon, hopefully. Minnesota Pumps is here this week to replace Lift Station 1 and 2's pumps, which was on the capital improvement plan for 22. The force main repair was completed last week by Zavrils. The force main out to the lagoons had some issues during the high water event, so that issue is resolved. We're picking away at some more of the downtown sidewalks to repair some of the bad pavers. I tried to start going through the Sampson's addition for some diseased trees and dead trees. I'm gonna try and concentrate on one addition, see how many private trees we have that are gonna need to be removed, and we budgeted 50,000 for the private trees that'll be assessed and then reimbursed over the 3 to 5 year time frame. But I just want to make sure we don't send more letters than we have funds to remove. So we're gonna Sampson's is probably the worst addition right now for diseased dead trees. So I made it halfway down Pleasant last week, and I found 8 trees. So anyways, if I'm putting some white banners on trees in the area, whether they're boulevard trees or private property owner trees, and I hope to send out notices to the private property owners by the end of the month. And I don't think we're gonna have quite as strict of a deadline for removal, kind of give them till spring kind of a deal, because the removal of trees in the wintertime is better for the disease not spreading. So I don't know if Darren mentioned it yet, but the flashers for the school are working. Thanks to the county for programming them. They're only set to flash during the designated times at the school. So there's about an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. So if you don't see them flashing at noon, that doesn't mean they're not working. They're designed to turn off and on at specific times. So other than that, that's all I got, unless somebody has any questions.
We're gonna record start up on Stevens first?
Yeah, he already did that.
Good deal, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brandon. Greg, anything more?
No, not more report tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Jake, anything?
No report tonight, Your Honor.
All right. Start with Tom tonight. Anything?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Lane?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Don?
Ward 4 is going to have a meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock here in the City Hall, for anyone that's interested to attend. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Clayton?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the community rummage sale. This past week and a half ago or two, they decided they weren't going to have the Highway 75 rummage sale thing, and it got put out on the Facebook, and ended up with a list of 36 people that had rummage sales, and that's ones that reported in. And I don't know, I'm assuming that if you drove around town, you saw signs all over. And even my wife had one, and it was surprising how many people from out of town, just driving through, seeing these signs and going to them. And I just want to compliment the community. They did a great job, and they brought a lot of people to the community from the outside area, so that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thanks. Steve?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Christie?
I just wanted to give a shout out for those who put together the Chalk It Up event this weekend. It's always really nice to just have things going on in our town. So I appreciate that. Jess, is it the DCDP that did that? Okay, and then it was Rotary that sponsored like the prizes. So thank you both to those groups for doing that. It was really nice to have something for the kids to go do this weekend, so I appreciate that. I attended the Oak Court resident meeting this month as well, and a lot of great conversation and ways of addressing some of the concerns that the residents were had, so we're in a good place there, so that's it.
Thanks. Wayne?
Remember, there's a Cheetah board meeting or Cheetah meeting tomorrow at noon out at VTP.
Thank you. I also attended the Oak Court meeting, a lot of great input from the residents down there. Tim, nice job once again on the 9/11 memorial. Corky, are we having a meeting on the 19th?
There's a special council meeting scheduled for the 19th to address budget.
So put that on your calendar.
Next Monday?
Next Monday.
Could we get
Did people get
Tina
a
to send that
calendar?
on our calendar?
Just giving you guys a heads up. Also, Darren mentioned school was open and just kind of be careful out there. It's kind of dark at 7 a.m. and kids are moving, buses are moving. That's all I have. Just a reminder that we will have Ways and Means shortly. Nothing else become before council. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Oh, I asked for Commissioner.
No update though, but I mean, it's great to see this Highway 2 corridor getting into an action phase with the department. Tom will remember this has been a long-term, probably 10 or 12-year project that we've tried to get people interested in providing some money to make repairs. So it's good to see, although 27 is a long time to wait.
All right. Thanks, Gary. We are adjourned. got a bit to go through here. Start out with the preliminary tax levy discussion. I guess the ball's in Corky and Ryan's court.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is a summary of what would happen if 25% increase in the tax levy. So I want to give you the history of this, so you can have the background and you can ask questions. For these past few weeks, we've had meetings, Ways and Means Committee, and you've been given sheets and summaries of what department heads budgeted or proposed a budget for next year. When Ryan and I worked on these budgeting summaries, if all of those items that had been requested that you saw were to be granted, it would have resulted in a 37.5% requested increase in the levy. Ryan and I are not foolish. We knew that would make you all very uncomfortable. So, we've had 2 department head meetings, and at each of those meetings, we asked our department heads on an individual basis to go through their budgets and reduce them. Because 37.5%, given today's economy, with our citizens, with the city, that just would not be acceptable. We set an original target at approximately 28%, and we came back and discussed again, and then they asked what would be a number that the council could at least start with. And I suggested to them that it be 25% increase. That amount would be $630,846. Each 1% of increase is $25,234. So we came tonight with that number for your consideration. If you were to propose or authorize a 25% increase for a preliminary budget, these are the numbers that you would see in terms of revenue. In addition, it does take into account a reserve from the prior years being added into our revenues. Each of the department heads was given a couple of assumptions to assume. One, in calculating their particular budgets, they were asked to assume a 40% increase in utility costs. Be it gasoline, be it electricity, be it natural gas, whatever utilities they were involved with within their departments. Secondly, I believe we heard you all say at one point or another, one of our chief priorities for this city is to obtain and retain employees. Their budgets included that. We have had a survey done. The State of Minnesota League of Cities has a survey which it compiles, and it consists of reports from human resources directors, city administrators, and others with respect to categories of employees and wages. As we went through the budget, we discussed, and especially the public works, and especially the park and rec, when we compared our wages to the average of 10 similar cities, we looked at what the difference would be between our average wage and their average wage. Some of the cities we compared to were East Grand Forks, Thief River Falls, Virginia, Grand Rapids, Morris, Montevideo. We purposely left out the metro areas. And so we looked at, and with Jordan, our human resources director, if you will, he did a great job in putting these numbers together. He and Ryan worked together and were able to compile what the average wage for similar cities were with similar job descriptions. Now, not every city has an MS1, but they have characteristics that we tried to compare, and we tried to compare our average wage to their average wage. And as a result, the Public Works and the Park and Rec have, in their preliminary numbers that are a part of this tonight, have really emphasized wages. And there would be increase in those wages. And there would be significant changes in those two departments, but all departments would have some change. So a large component of what you see in front of you, this 25%, is made up of utility costs and wages for all departments. It's been the department heads deserve a lot of credit and merit for how they worked individually and with Ryan and with Jordan on seeing where measurable cuts could be made. And I don't like to call them cuts, and I'm trying not to do that again. Expenditure reductions would be made. We don't have a lot of room on the fee area, but we have some room in the areas we've talked about. Utilities and wages for our employees. As you may all appreciate, we've had positions open in this city in Public Works, for which we've had no applications. We've had a police department that has attempted to recruit officers. We are not fully staffed in the police department. If we hire the next one that Chief talked about tonight, we'll still be one person down. And for every officer we lose, that's another officer down. That requires overtime be paid and the stress that goes with working overtime and not having time off. Other components of this are the normal everyday kind of figuring some calculation for inflation, for cost of living adjustments. That all go into that 25% that you see in front of you. That's what we bring to you, but what we need to know is what your target is. Where are you all comfortable being in terms of a levy increase? And then the department heads, Ryan and myself, will go about the business of getting to that number if we can. Tonight's preliminary for you to talk to us, ask us questions, and go from there.
So a question is, am I reading this correctly? 2021 actual
Yes.
revenue is $9,322,192.
Yes. That's correct.
So, and the budget of revenue for 2023 is $9,800,000. So you're basically increasing revenue about 500,000, roughly.
550,000, yes, that's correct.
So
from all sources.
From all sources. So in your department meeting, you're looking at expense reduction, did you also look at revenue increases with much gusto as you did with expense reduction? Because I know revenues are gonna hurt everybody. 25% levy is gonna hurt everybody. So I mean, I'm just wondering if just some of these revenues can be looked at and maybe increased in some areas. If that makes sense.
You know, the department heads that probably have the most of that would be, Jake and then Brandon. And I'm sure Brandon can speak as to how you looked at your revenues for your departments and tried to make them break even was his goal when he was looking at those numbers.
Yeah, that's what I did, any revenue source that I have, whether it was water, wastewater, streetlights, garbage, I was trying to get them to break even, you know, and the wastewater was pretty.
Is that I mean, I'm just asking a question here, so don't take offense. Is that a good plan? I mean, should we look at some of these areas and maybe try to make money in some of them in case something has to happen then down the road? And saying, okay, now we got some extra revenue in this area because we've charged this much. Now we can actually pull from that revenue that we've made to do something.
Yeah, I would love to create revenue we could use for other areas, you know, had we evaluated our rates through the years and not, you know, to get the wastewater department to where they're breaking even with the capital improvement plan I put together, we have to double the wastewater rate already. So, you know, could we
Well,
go?
granted, it's a tax either way. I mean, if you look at it, I think the citizens are either gonna, but I think something like that might be a little bit easier to swallow. And then that, I mean, now, the first thing you did, which I think is great, by getting to the break-even part, but maybe in some of these different areas, maybe we should be.
Do you want me to give you, you know, I have that rate study. Do you want me to try and get us in the median rate category for, let's say, Thief River, Bemidji communities?
I think we should have taken a look at that, because as a city, that you know, what are other cities paying, and maybe that might be the first step of looking at revenues and things like that.
I mean, the adjustments that I made didn't really move us. We're still at the bottom of
Just so you understand, I believe there were 43 cities in the study, and we were the second lowest. So get to where Brandon is, we're the third lowest.
So that being said, let's just say, just hypothetically right now, we get to the medium. How much does that increase? I mean, how much would that incent lower our levy to, you know, maybe make it more palatable?
Yeah, I would have to put my spreadsheets together.
Yeah.
But I can do that.
So I like this, how the levies by 1% increase 25,234. I would also like to see maybe a spreadsheet on revenue, say, okay, if we increase our revenues to this, this will increase this much money for us, and so on. And maybe there's a happy medium in between, you know, where, I mean.
Well, and with Brandon, you have to keep in mind with his public works, he does have the water and wastewater, that's an enterprise fund, but he does have, you know, ones that fall under the Fund 101, the general fund, that he's got revenues and expenses in there also. And it's really those, that Fund 101, that is in the levy percent.
Okay.
And what are some of those sources?
For Fund
The
101.
101?
Primary, a lot of that is our LGA that goes into Fund 101.
Okay.
Because there's certain guidelines on how those dollars can be spent and stuff, but we did see
Sure.
an increase this year of 75,000 in our LGA dollars.
And we are certified, we will be receiving those.
Another question is, okay, we're talking about wages and whatever, which I think is very important to keep thing, but my thinking on this is we need to, I think, to prioritize whether it's police, fire, whoever, instead of trying to do this all in 1 year, is to have a 5-year plan of saying, all right, let's focus on the police department. We're always short. That's our biggest problem that I've seen so far. I just heard about the Parks and Rec side of it probably more lately, but, you know, to really focus on how we want to do that and distribute, you know, I don't know what that would drop it to, 18, 10, 12, 20, I don't know, but at the end of the day, if we focused on 1 or 2 departments this year and have a 5-year plan to say, all right, now we're gonna up Parks and Rec, okay? And that one's 2 years from down the road or whatever it is. But I just think that this is a big bite, you know? You wanna throw 25 in that, I know that's a top number, we can always go down, but we don't ever seem to go down much. And I just think that's a big bite if we take all the department heads and for employee benefits and in hiring and getting wages up there, because that's a big chunk of money, I mean.
And understand, to some degree, we have done that, but it's also based on the contract negotiations. It's maybe more difficult than we all understand to tell one group, well, we're gonna take care of you in 3 to 5 years. I
And
will
I
tell
get
you,
that.
I was in negotiations last year when we did that, and they said, we've been hearing that for 15 years. Well, and your point is well taken, council member, but, and we have not done that. We have not prioritized formally, but informally, I think we have. We know that certain of our groups, the ones that you just mentioned, are closer to the median than others.
And there is 3 different unions that we are currently working with. And, you know, when you look at those unions as a whole, and you take and look at that average that we did, the union that Brandon's workers fall in is the lowest paid ones. They're the ones who are the farthest off the scale for him hiring in his MS1, his MS2s. And he's actually put a lot of work into a spreadsheet to try and get steps in there that after so much time, that you get a raise, if you do a successful evaluation. It's kind of what East Grand Forks did. It's a 72-month thing that they did with their individuals so that they would see a range, salary range from this range to this range, or kind of what Crookston has done in the past. It's just, you start at what the person before you left at, which isn't necessarily right. And then yet, if he's trying to hire someone to run a snowplow, well, and they can go to East Grand Forks and get $10 more an hour, I mean, we're gonna have a hard time getting somebody into that snowplow.
One of the things that we've looked at for all of the unions is, as Ryan was indicating, for, let's just say, our public works people, they're an MS1. There's no moving in and up in MS, well, let's say 3. No moving up. You either you get to be a 2, or you're still stuck at the same rate level. Maybe steps make some sense. We also have that issue with the police department. You come in as a patrol person, you get that wage throughout, unless you become a sergeant or a detective. We're looking at that, but we can't correct that all in 1 year. And it's certainly subject to negotiation.
So what was the number, let's just say, well, percentage-wise, of what you think that the salaries throughout the city have got to go up to? I mean, it probably all vary, or?
They do vary between.
But you got a percent in your head that you want to say, we're gonna go for a minimum of 8%, 12%, you know, whatever?
Well, there, again, that depends on which department you're in. The Public Works Department is significantly low, significantly. Police, on the other hand, are closer to the median than others. Our ASME workers, that's Public Works, low. Fire, not as low. But I think, if I remember correctly, we have only one or none that really reach the median.
Have you got a figure, okay, you said 40% on utilities?
Yes.
And then the wages. Have you got a percentage of the levy to cover those two? The 2 items, the wages and the 40% on utilities?
That could be done.
I'd like to
But
see that one.
Your Fund 101, you know, is where you're gonna see most all these people in.
Yeah,
The Park and Rec, that can easily be done. You know, I do have a spreadsheet that we did take and apply, and what we did is we took their salary for the year, we did what the adjusted would be for getting their salary range where it should be,
Yep.
and then if there was a cost of living increase into the spreadsheet, and I
Right.
can share those with Corky, and then he can, you know, share
well,
that with you guys.
I think those are our 2 things that we're gonna have to cover, our wages and our utilities costs, because they're going up. You know, I mean, I gotta pay them myself, but there's other things that I'd like in my household, but I gotta maybe make a choice. Do I do with what I got, or do I go in the hole?
Do we have a number of total employees that we had say for the last 3 or 4 years, you know, where you say we're not fully, you know, but how many, I mean, like now if we got 2 guys in IT and we only had 1. Now we got another guy that do we have extras now that are upstairs in HR or anything like that? I mean, are we gaining employees? Are we, you know, on some of these different departments? And then when you don't have a full staff of police, does that overtime eat up everything that, you know, that you would have had invested? You know, there's just different things that, and then like Tom says, the utilities, what is a 40% increase? What is the number? From last year, what you paid in utilities, when you jacked it up 40%, what is that total number?
You should have saw that in the notes on.
I don't recall that. Do you recall it though?
Well, we can definitely look at that, but we don't.
I'm
part
just-
of the budgeted number and then add the.
Because I'm just looking at it now, I mean, if it's, you know, another $100,000, you know, that's 4% right off the get-go that we're gonna have to find. So I mean, you know, those are kind of some of the numbers that, like Tom says, you gotta keep your help and you gotta pay the utilities, but, some of these other things, I don't know, it's, like we said, we can pick any number you want and then try and get the department heads to work down to it. Are there any things that they can work down to that are a one-time, we've talked about this, you know, as a one-time purchase, like, you know, say it's,
A one-time item, yes.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily have to come from here. You know, one-time items, I'll share, you know, you probably all have heard me say it. One-time items have more relevance to reserves than the budget because they're one-time items. So are there some of those things? Certainly. We haven't identified them specifically, but yes, reserves makes a lot of sense for one-time items. Typically, this budget isn't overloaded with one-time items, but there are certainly some things in there that are one-time.
and I guess that's kind of where we gotta go to. I mean, we know we gotta have salaries, and we know we gotta have, you know, utilities, and the certain things that you have to have, and then, like you say, you go from there, and can you prioritize? Can you put them in different categories? Can you put them on a 5-year plan? I mean, that's gonna be quite a pill to swallow here at, say even 20% on, as they say in the election year, you know, I mean, those guys that's gonna be something. But, you know, rather than to sit here and that, I mean, I can pick a number, but I'm thinking it's more like, can you tell me what a number is gonna
What you're
close to
asking
have
us
to
to
be?
do is say, if we move item A out of the budget into either a reserve or eliminate it, what number does it get us to?
Right.
Yeah, I
Percentage.
think, I'm just arbitrarily giving you a number that makes you feel better. 4% makes me feel better, but that's not gonna get us to what we need.
And that's
I think
what's
we
got
need
it.
to, like, we need
Yeah,
to
that's
start
where we are.
dissecting this stuff.
Yeah.
And if you ask us, we can create different scenarios and say, if we reduce this expenditure, here's what it brings us to.
Yeah.
A percentage.
Well, that's based on, if you look at your sheet.
Right.
I mean, 1%, 25,000, you know, you gotta cut that out of your budget. So you leave 1%.
So if you say.
That's the scary part for me is that, you know, to get down to 20, you got 5 times $25,000, that's $125,000 right out of the gate.
Exactly.
So where, you know, we could throw 20% on there, but where are you guys gonna cut? If this is your skin and bones, where are you gonna cut 125,000?
I guess my concern is that we keep in the past focusing on the percentage and not actually like what is detrimental to the city. And I feel like we keep kicking the can down the road and then things are falling off the wall or breaking down or we're not maintaining them because we're so focused on a percentage and not about maintaining the things we have. And so I don't feel comfortable saying I think you should get to 20% if that's going to not put us where we need to be going forward. And in the long run, it's not the most fiscally responsible thing to do if we're not maintaining the vehicles that we have, if we're not doing what we need to do. So I would like to know, you know, at 22% or 20%, what is being given up in order for us to get there? And is it still going to be beneficial to the city overall in the long run? Or are we, again, just kicking that can down the road? And it's going to cost us a lot more in the long run. So I think that we need to have an idea of what 25% looks like, what 22% looks like, what 18% looks like, so we can have a better idea and have a more educated decision here. Just giving an arbitrary number and hoping that you can fix it doesn't do us any good, and it doesn't do the city any good.
And we can absolutely do that.
Mayor, look
What
at,
the department heads have done is they sat down with their supervisors and went through line by line what they thought that they could cut and left in what they feel is most important. What hasn't happened yet is that one-on-one meeting with Corky with their CIP and what they feel that they want. They now will have to argue.
They'll have to
Corky
prioritize.
To say, no, I really want this, or, you know, he might say, no, that's out. You know, so that's
I-
going to change.
I think that's the big word right there, want. What do we need rather than what do we want?
And that's exactly why we're at this point now, is that, as you say, Councilmember Jurdy, we have left some things in the past.
But at this point, I think maybe we want to know, maybe I think what you're asking, Christie, is that we're at this point now, maybe we need to know what's being cut so we can decide maybe what, so hey, no, I don't want to cut that. That's something that we need. We talked about that. You know, so maybe at this point, when you start to say, okay, we're cutting this here, maybe that's something as a council we don't agree should be cut, and then we're back to where we're.
Well, I would hope you would rely on your department
Yeah.
heads to make that decision.
Yeah.
Well, and I do, but the other thing is what I don't want to have happen is like we talked about, kicking the can down the road. You know, granted, this number hurts, but I mean.
And I think you can.
So I'll give you an example. I mean, yes, I trust our department heads, but we just talked about this arena thing that's been going on for several years. This should have been fixed. This should have been addressed a long time ago. So that's something we didn't know about.
And I think you can feel comfortable, all of you, that your department heads, as they sit now, are on top of things and are aware of things. And they will not give up something they believe is a need.
Right.
They will not do that. I believe they're aware of situations, like you say, Councilman Clark, that need to be addressed. I really believe that they're well informed. They do present very well, I need this. I have very seldom heard any of them say, I want this, or this is a throwaway. When they say there's a need, I believe there's a need, and I think there are some wants in here. I would be less than frank if I didn't say that. There's some wants. And we can meet individually. I can with each of them. Ryan and I can meet, and we can say, look, we need to be able, if we take this out, here's what it does to our levy. And I will have to make some decisions if it gets right down to it. This is the need that's
So
prior.
you've said you started at 37%, so you've already cut about 302,000
Yes,
off to get it down to the 25%.
yes.
So I'm assuming that those 302,000s were wants, probably.
Some of them.
I think that's a fair, and this has been done really without a lot of consultation with myself or others.
So some of it was like the $100,000 for the flood improvement by the fire hall. We reallocated to the 401 fund to pull from reserves for it. And $25,000 for a pump for the flood fighting to pull from reserves, and that is what that fund was intended for. You know, I looked at all of my utilities up from January to this point in 21, and I did this, so I compared it to 21 to 22, and it looked more like, you know, 15 to 20% increase. So I adjusted my utilities to reflect that.
And we can perhaps do that with other departments. We gave that as an initial figure, because at the time, 2 months ago, it was going up 9.5% a month. So we can look at that kind of thing too.
But yeah, but that, I mean, when we start cutting stuff like that, you know, there's no guarantee there. I mean, it's like, they're talking natural gas is going through the roof. Well, if we cut it down from 40 to 20, they're in the deficit again, and that's not really the way to budget things either. It's like, you know, it's you know it's gonna go up. It's guess how much.
It's just whether it's gonna go up 15% a year, 17, and again, 40 may be something that we can look at, but that's our starting point.
Well, that's what I say, I think you need to do the wages and you need to do the utilities. Do those two, and then,
Some final numbers to come back to with our health insurance and stuff, what those, rates are going to be, because we did ask the department heads to add $100 a month for each one of their employees, and it's looking now that we, probably need to do that.
You won't need to add $100.
When's the last time I mean, so do we shop, our, benefits is there other? Every year. Okay.
These revenue numbers, are these with the, also suggested upping of fees in the different departments as
I
well?
was just gonna say that Park and Rec, Jake is not here right now, but he has upped the fees, as you all heard, across the board. And in fact, we've received some responses from parents with multiple participants. Why don't you have like the school where you cap it for certain families with certain number of kids? Well, that increase then wouldn't be all there. And that's a policy decision that Park and Rec has to make. But those are all included in here.
Also, with the school, isn't that somewhat subsidized as well?
What's that?
Is it somewhat subsidized? What they were referring to at the school being like
Well,
after a
what they're
certain amount?
talking about is if you have, let's say, 3 kids in free fall sports, they don't charge you the full rate.
Sure.
They cap it at a certain
It's
level.
once you hit $100.
Or
Sure.
$200 or whatever, yeah.
Sure.
You just don't pay anything.
And have we done some comparison in fees for us versus other surrounding or comparable towns?
As a group, we're lower.
Sure. Sure.
What, the reserve prior years at 290,000 for 2022, where is that coming from?
That actually is what we reserved last year, that's gonna be spent this year. At the end of the year, in March, some projects or things that were allocated for, like say a capital improvement item that we ordered it, but we don't have it yet, so then we need to reserve it. Like last year, Amy wanted you guys to do, wage studies, so we had put 75,000 into reserve for that. Well, that dollars in that will be used here this year.
That was not spent on the wage study because we were able to use the League of Minnesota City study for nothing because we were a participant.
So where does it come in the 2023 budget?
It goes into that line that we're going to use that, so then you're gonna have more revenue there to offset your expense when that item is here. So it comes out of reserve. The journal will put it into reserve.
So you have an actual list of things that 290 is for then? Or,
Yeah, I can do that.
like I said, I'm just curious because like I said, we already got it budgeted for.
It's what it was for,
Yeah, but,
wasn't spent.
so
it'll carry
but that's a
forward.
long time to carry from 20, well, into 21, into 22, into 23. The
Is
same
it,
amount
is
of
it
money.
set for something or no?
Yes.
It is.
Has to be.
Okay, so it already is,
Yes.
Yeah, and it can't be for wages or anything like that, it's for very specific.
So you're suspecting you're gonna spend in 23 then?
Yes.
Gotcha.
We're only allowed to carry it so long,
All right.
okay.
then it will go back into general revenue.
So when we budget a number, do we always hit that number at the end of the year? I mean, is it, so what I'm asking is, so like,
A budget as a whole or a line item as a whole?
Budget.
budget as a whole, so like, for example, we budget a number, and then we get to the end of the year. So historically, are we budgeting low and actually coming in high, or are we, or what? I'd like to know.
Is that a question, though, that isn't necessarily relevant in the fact that we have a very different leadership group coming forward in the next, I mean, I think it's hard to like historically say that when you have a very different.
Probably, but I'd just like to
Yeah.
know for my own,
Going forward.
going forward.
That should come off your actuals. I mean, your actuals are your actuals. It
Right.
can tell you exactly what you were. So I mean, that's what I think, that's why I was so adamant when Amy was there, we need the actuals.
Yeah, but we hadn't had them for such a long time.
But I'm just saying, we need those.
We
to make
do,
a decision
agreed.
To make the 25%
But it's
levy.
hard to
Without
say
that,
what
you
they
can't
were.
do it. And we need it.
Financial
Yep.
report, you can see what was budgeted and where the dollars were at and what percent we have left to go. So say that, the department went over, it takes the net of that, so at the end of the year, if their budget was in the negative, it's going to over reserve the exact dollar amount that it was before I can close it out.
Okay, so pulling from reserve, does that require council action?
For a purchase that somebody wants to do, yes.
But
But
just
for like
coming
these
up-
budgets and stuff like that,
He just lets us know how much he's gonna pull from reserves to get where we need to be.
when you see that on a monthly basis, if you wanna see more detail to something on that.
I'm just trying to ask if it's a way to get funds from revenue without coming to council to say, oh, I'm purposely gonna blow my budget because I'm gonna get it. No, listen, I'm asking the question.
Yeah,
No, and just so you understand, when I speak with department heads, they never have a bad idea.
No, I know.
But I tell them, that's a wonderful idea. You have to convince me, and you have to convince Ryan
Yep.
that we can pay for it. Okay, so that's not gonna happen. And if they're at 99% in June of their budget, we chat. Now, the only one who can get away with that is Brandon, because he blows it all on snow removal. But, so, could that happen? I guess it's possible. I can tell you.
But we
that's some
hired
safeguards.
good people to try to prevent that.
Exactly.
Get it, yep.
Exactly.
Here it comes.
Well, I think, like the audit report that we got, 2 meetings ago or whatever, I think it's pretty typical that the overall budget puts $200,000 to $300,000 back into reserves every year. Usually we're under on a historic.
Historically, we're under expending relative to what we had projected. That's why, I believe if I remember right, our auditor stood up there and said, you have a reserve that's at, I want to say 83%, and normal is 30 to 40. That's why that happened. Can you count on it? You can't really count on it, but historically that's happened, but this year is a different year.
So what's the name of the funds we sometime, or we don't count on, I guess, but what funds we get from the state? The
LGA.
LGA, is that, where is that at in this?
That's going to
Intergovernmental.
be, yeah, intergovernmental revenue.
Intergovernmental revenue, if you see that projected for 2023, 4,525,000.
So that went up 200,000 again this year.
No, it went up 75,000 for the LGA, but there's more than just LGA
So-
in that number.
So Corky, when we got done with last year's budget, are we done with where are we at?
2022, or are you talking when we got done with 2021?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, now, the money that you had always, usually left over, that goes into your reserves, is that something that you could take and put that as a revenue source that would automatically, instead of saying you're taking from reserves, you subtract it off of your coming budget because you over budget, so that we're not constantly over budgeting for our folks, and now we've got 4 million in reserves, and we're trying to go up 20%.
That's a great point. So if we have the money left over from last year, let's count that as revenue for this year.
Well, and some of that's gonna be your city administrator, how they run those things. Some cities will budget a negative for their department to run. The city of Crookston, as far back as I look, never ran a budget in the negative.
Never ran it to the red. But one of the things you should understand is that philosophically, my philosophy is, we levy people, they pay taxes, we should use that money for what we say we're going to do.
Yes.
It is not my philosophy that we should build reserves on the backs of people.
So just exactly like Wayne said, so
Exactly.
then that, like you said, a revenue source for this coming year.
A revenue source for this coming year could be reserves. Again, consistent with my philosophy, you tap reserves for one-time purchases.
Yeah, GASB doesn't allow us to take reserves automatically to do expenses like that.
To do wages, we can't do that, we shouldn't do that, because it builds that in then.
But so let's just say we got a reserve of X number.
Yes.
So maybe we try to maintain that number, but if, because we taxed our citizens maybe too much in the past year, whatever that number is above the number we started with, we can put that into the following income for the next year.
Well, when the question gets asked about the reserves from the accountants, they often ask, where is our infrastructure? Have we been replacing infrastructure and doing streets and roads, maintaining what we currently have? And we have this reserves that we have right now, and I don't think that we do, from what I'm hearing from other department heads, that our infrastructure and our roads need a lot of work in city streets and stuff. And so then our health reserves aren't necessarily good for the city because we've neglected these things.
We don't want this city of Crookston to become Jackson, Mississippi, or Chicago, Illinois. And we could be in that position. Infrastructure, Brandon can talk all day about our infrastructure needing repairs. Our streets, our roads need repairs.
But if we've carried this reserve for that many years, why don't we take care of some of them instead of having to jack it up like he wants to put it back up to $100 a foot for fixing the roads?
Well, Crookston though is really low what it charges its people compared to other cities in the state.
We did that for a reason.
But that is a consideration, okay? That's a consideration. That is a part of this, but not necessarily a part of this in terms of the wages for retaining and obtaining workers. It is certainly a consideration for when and if we repair roads or sidewalks.
But when you do that and they compare it with East Grand Forks and Thief River and whatnot, and you go to these meetings and they say, what do you guys charge a running foot for a construction? And you tell them $40 a running foot, and they're like, how in the hell do you do it? Well, it's done through a different process, but in the same time, they're not going up 25% on their taxes. So I mean, you're getting it here, or here, and it costs you money to live in town. That's what they always tell you. Whether you want running water, you want police, and you want fire, it costs money to live in town. And it's just a matter of how we spend it and how we make it look. As they all say, the end of the day, you all want good roads, you all want clean water, and you all want fire and police protection. That's what we gotta look at here, and how can we make it affordable, and how can you drop that fee down for a road for the last 5 years and not touch my neighborhood? And now when you're gonna finally do mine, which I've been yiping about for 5 years, you're gonna jack it up 3 times of what it was. I've been pitchforks and torches around here.
It isn't
Come
jacked
after
up.
you.
It isn't jacked up yet.
No, I know, but that's what he was proposing.
Well, There's all kinds of ways to skin a cat.
So, okay, and that's good, and that's what we wanna hear. And so that's what I'm saying, if we could get back to some of this, I think you got the idea of what we want. We don't wanna give you a number, cause we could give you the 4%, the 5%, and that ain't gonna happen. You need to tell
really not
us,
gonna happen.
you need to tell us pretty much what it's got to be close, and then we can, fist fight a little bit. But
That's why
I don't
we have
wanna
to
start at 20 and try to get down to 4. There's no way in
But
heck.
the whole problem with, when you got that, when you're that funded at you're 85 and the accountant's telling you to be at 35, that's where I really have a problem going at 25 or 20. Reserves are meant there for a reason. I get that. I don't wanna spend it down and be broke either. But over the last 8 years, we've taken out of reserves, and at the end of the year, we have a surplus of about the same amount of money. So that's telling me that we can make it without that. So why can't we take that instead of having the levy at 20%, and let's get down to 18? And maybe that's, you can say that we caused this over the last 8 years. Not really, because at the same time, we had that carryover too. You can say what you want on it, but it's not just that you're trying to be at 6-7%. Cost of living is, you think that's only gone up 2% per year for the last 8 years? I mean, that's a 25-30% increase. So it's one of those things, till we can spend down some of the reserves to say, you know what, we're 60% funded. Okay, you're supposed to be at 35. We're at 85% funding. So the people that are making the rules in the legislature and everything else that looks at, geez, Crookston's sitting at 85% funded, and should be at 35. This LGA, we count on it for everything. And someday, I just foresee it going the opposite way. And then what are we gonna do? We're not gonna have any police, any fire, whatever. I mean, the whole state will be in an uproar, but.
We're gonna need reserves.
At the end of the day, you cannot be that well funded. And they're not gonna keep giving you free money when all these cities are sitting on a great situation. We're probably one of the most lucrative cities around. We don't have any debt. How many cities around here don't have any debt?
One.
Exactly. Us. And it's one of those things, to me, we gotta look at that other funding. Do we levy, do we whatever? Or do we go and say, all right, we're gonna got a big project, let's put all this together and do it that way and bond for it or whatever, but I just think that we just, to even start at 25, and I said it early on, I picked it 32% without even, I think I said that live on that, and it's one of those things that you already whittled that much down, and I don't wanna whittle it down either to where we can't buy patients. It's not the way to operate either, but.
Well, we can do that, and we will do that. We will give you alternatives. If we do A, B, and C, here's your levy percentage. We do X, Y, and Z, here's your levy percentage. Now, reserves can't be used for everything. Understand that. Ryan's aware of that, I'm aware of that. It has to fit categories. It has to fit categories. But we wanted to give you a general sense tonight of where we're at. And I think I get the message, and I can't speak for Ryan, is go back. Talk to your departments. Make sure they understand, 1, need versus want, 2, priorities, and as I'm hearing you speak, we're talking 15 to 18%. You want it in, you're not giving us a number, but that's kind of the number I'm hearing.
I wonder if you could take a closer look at maybe the utilities too. If my math is right, I looked at the arena and you went up from what you projected for last year, you're up for, projected for this coming year, 180,000.
What percent is that?
Well, it was 40% in your preliminary, you were,
Let's have something we can look at.
is that?
We can tell you.
And I guess department heads would know if that's high. I'm just asking a question.
Yep, no, and it's a good question, and we can say, if we go up 30%, not 40, here's what it means.
Right.
You're gonna have that with gas and diesel too,
Yeah.
with what they use for streets and what they use for park and rec and what they use in the fire and police.
And it's like with the police, now I don't think that's so bad. Gas and oil, they only jumped at 10 grand. It was 25, I think, for the budget set for 2022, and for 23, it went to 35.
Yeah, that's 40%.
But
So Ryan, how are we doing in 2023 or 2022 as far as gas being up 30%, 40% from what we budgeted a year and over a year ago? I mean,
I have to break it down by each, fund, and then look at it that way and see what it is.
'cause I foreseen us having a huge deficit here in the end of 22. I mean, where did we have the money to absorb all the cost increases that we've had in the last?
Because we're long.
That's
Can we, it's getting pretty late here. Are you still gonna go over this stuff from, these organizations?
Well, that was our plan.
I mean, some people have been here for
ever.
Yeah.
3.5 hours. We're gonna better touch on it, but the rest of it, can we do this next Monday night? I mean, go back, you guys,
Address
for the
this.
budget, you guys kinda know what we're talking about, and,
We do, but the requests from these people.
no, can we do that tonight?
Can we do that?
And anything else with the,
Do you have a good direction, is I guess what we're asking?
Okay,
So we
here's
can
the
maybe
direction
go.
I-
Yes, I think after the department head meets with Corky and goes through their lists, capital items, and what they feel they need in the budget, I think we can cut this, and I think we can cut it if our health insurance rates and things, don't go up as we are anticipating.
We've got some room for flexibility here. What I hear you all telling Ryan and I and our departments is, we're not comfortable with 25. We'd like you to cut expenditures, reduce expenditures, go back and find us some sources, and you don't necessarily care what they are, but get us down into that 15% range.
I'd say
But not
let's
at
get
the
it down to
detriment of the
15.
city.
What's that, 15?
Get it down to 15. You're gonna get some
Because this is
pretty
just gonna be the
torqued off people even
preliminary,
at that.
then in
No, I
December,
get it.
you guys say exactly what
Yeah.
you want.
And we can certainly discuss that next Monday night,
right?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
quickly and efficiently, because.
Can you also,
Yeah.
can you also, I think like last year, we seen how much the median income for each family, or we broke it down, I think, last year of how much this means per, can we break it down?
Per
We
household,
can break it
per
down
household
per
and,
household,
Yes.
based on household.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
and
And I
business.
did not do that tonight because I had no clue where you guys
Right,
were gonna want
right.
this to
We
be.
will
I didn't want
absolutely
to scare the public and think their taxes were gonna be 25%.
Sure.
We can absolutely, and we will do that.
Good
We
call.
already anticipated doing it when we got closer to
You're saving lives, Ryan.
Sounds good.
But I have changed this format and I have it in a spreadsheet now, so now it's gonna be just dumped right out of the system into there, and there isn't rekeying all these numbers, and you guys get to see these prior years where
Yeah, that's good.
you
Good
didn't have that.
information. Good,
So we
inf-
have been working.
good information.
Okay, should we go on
Yeah.
to the, okay, what Ryan and I have asked various organizations to do, and we let them know, we put it on the website. Did we write a letter to you?
No.
We put it on our website, we let it be known at least orally throughout the community. If you want money outside the budget, you need to submit an application. And I want you all to understand, the requests you see in front of you, you don't have to decide them tonight, but you can hear them, are outside the budget, so they would raise the levy.
My question on that, like say with the Golden Link, that's every year that's how come that's outside if it's the same as what they've been asking every year? Shouldn't that already been in the budget?
Because it's not gonna be under Park and Rec.
Why not? It's always
Because
been
it's
there.
not Park and Rec, it's its own entity.
It is under Park and Rec in our 225 fund.
Fund.
That is where it does fall, yeah.
It
That's
comes
what
out of there, but they're.
that's what it's always been. It's like,
but
it's
you
like
have no
having,
control over them, it's just a different, we're saying the same thing.
Park and Rec does not run the Golden Link.
No, but it's always been considered in their budgets.
Yes, but it's not
But
run
they
by.
have always given their financials and what their budget is and what they're going to do, and show you guys what they're doing with their money.
Right.
But, yeah, just so you understand, Park and Rec has no say in how they spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first one is Golden Lake. They have made a request for $78,000, identical to last year.
So does this, cover their snow expense?
I don't know what they're.
You know, they went through this and when I was down there, the number was closer to 90,000. So that's why I can't believe that, I mean, but.
What is the 78 supposed to be towards?
Whatever their general expenses are, I mean, you can
They
pick it
do it
out.
for heat, they do it for building, they do
Well, I
it
didn't know
for
in the,
utilities.
the form, if it like, you have to be
No,
explicit
I
about what
only
you're
got-
asking money
and
for.
Mine only got a budget. We got no explanation per se. We just got a budget, I mean, you could pluck numbers out. Could be for salary, it could be for heat, it could be for snow.
It appears as though they're using it for, salaries, insurance, administrative expenses. But their request has been 78 for the past few years.
And they're not making it, they're just, and I told them, I said, you know, if they would have went up to 2% like everybody else was doing over the past 10 years, you'd be up 10%, you'd be right up there. And so there you are again, we talked about it, discussed it, the number I had, and what they turned in is that, so I don't know, I didn't make the last meeting, so they could have changed it, I really don't know.
Just so you understand,
78,000.
any numbers of these that you approve, raise the levy. So this would be about a 3% levy increase.
Yeah.
I'm just so you know.
But Wayne, would you mind checking, did they email the wrong?
I don't know, I can do that, because we got a meeting, what day is today?
Monday today.
Wednesday.
Yeah, maybe I got.
I'll meet with
emailed
them
wrong
on
day.
Wednesday.
Yeah, okay.
Do we
If you
need to
don't
make a
mind.
decision on any of these now?
No.
No, this is just
So
for
we're
your
just hearing them.
consideration.
Okay.
Tri-Valley Opportunity Council has requested 14,500. This is for their transportation.
And this is every year that they've had this, or this is
They've
new
had
thing?
14,000 for 500 for 3 years.
I know for 3 years.
And it directly correlates to their transportation. They say they run 6 full-time routes in the city. They could add more routes, they say, but that's what this is for.
Okay.
I've got Scruffy Tails next, and that's formerly known as the Humane Society. They've asked for $10,001, and that is to renovate their kennels, have different mounting, different grading, different various items in their kennels, and then that was about $88,000. Then they had $1,925 for additional kennel area. I think there's a cat cove, perimeter walls, renovations to the building.
Can I ask real quick? Darren, do you know, there's another county that utilizes Scruffy Tails, right? Marshall County. So are they asking for money from the county or from any of those cities?
I don't know.
I'm just curious if we're like the only ones getting hit up, or
They're requesting money from the county.
they are requesting money from the county? For Polk, right? But not maybe Marshall. I'd be
suspect-
curious to know,
Couldn't tell you.
right? I'd be interested to know if they're also requesting other funding.
We can find that out. When I met with them previously, they said that they were not getting money from Polk County. I said, well, go ask them. What's the worst they can tell you? No. So apparently they did that.
They took your advice.
Is there any grants or anything that they can apply for?
Is there any justification for the $10,001? It just seems so random.
No, that's what I just said.
Oh, the added up?
Yes.
Okay.
8,076.
Okay, all right.
For renovation of kennels in 1925.
Okay, I didn't do the math, I just wanted to make sure that was
Comes
just,
to 10,000.
Can
say,
we
sir?
not service
Great.
Marshall County if they're not putting in anything?
Well, that's up to them.
well, that's what I was
They're an
curious
entity.
about.
I'd like to know, well,
But we can reach out to them.
Yeah, that's, I
Yeah.
can do
and
that.
say, I mean, I'd like to know how much they're getting in from Marshall County. So maybe if they can figure out some type of expense portion of that.
Yep.
And then if they, Because I don't feel like paying for Marshall County's stuff at no charge either.
Well,
Or
they may
pay.
very well have a service charge, like the city has a charge every time we use it.
Right.
They may have that, I don't know, but I will contact Scruffy Tails, and just inquire, do they pay,
So
do
if
they
we-
get money from Marshall?
So for my calculations, if we grant everything here, that's gonna increase the levy about a little over 6%.
6.2.
Yes.
I would just like to see them making an effort as well to reach out to all of the entities that are currently utilizing them, and that we are not subsidizing everybody else's usage of the Humane Society.
Is there any kind of grants or anything that they can apply for?
I'm sure there is a ton.
Tons of them.
Well, then
They
why don't
have.
they do it?
They have applied for grants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just because they ask for 10,000, one doesn't mean that is what the grant would be.
right.
You have complete,
So the
Discretion.
thing is, I think we have to, if we're asking our departments to cut from their budgets, we certainly, and then whatever that percentage is, I think we maybe look at these here and ask them to say, hey,
Not this year.
I do also wonder if like we do something that's more matching, like if you get, we'll match whatever Polk does, or we'll match whatever, if it's within a certain limit of dollars,
You gotta
right?
be careful when you do that.
Well, I'm not, yeah, if Polk's
playing
give
the
more
big
than
boys.
$10,001, then we gotta talk.
Well,
But I'm just saying more like matching up to 5,000 or something, right?
We'll
But
match
then it's
Marshall
good
County.
Good faith effort, what? Yeah,
we'll match Marshall County.
yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, but I think that like providing like, making it so they're actually reaching out to other entities and that it's not just us, I think is also showing some good faith effort
Right.
in finding funding other ways.
Jessica, how much, if anything, did you get last year? At,
Zero. Our request was dismissed. It
Okay.
was not brought forward.
Okay.
Or what?
We have a DP request of $40,000, and
Wow.
what they're suggesting that would go to is $1,000 for a food truck festival, Chalk It Up Festival, $5,000, benches, $16,000, waste receptacles, 5. I'm not sure what FFE means. But FFE is $9,100. Just says that's-
Full-time employee.
I don't know what list you're looking at.
I'm what I would received in the mail.
Oh, from Mitch.
Not from Mitch. I don't know who I got it from, but,
Probably.
No, Mitch did send
okay,
this.
Mitch sent this, okay. Signage, $11,900.
40,000.
I think what we need to do on this is like we've done, we gotta cut budgets too. I think we should do like we've done in the past, get our budget set. They come with a project from us, if we got the funds to fund that project and we think it's a good thing, then we'll fund it. We can't fund everything.
We have a request from
Can- Corey, I'm sorry, can you tell me again the receptacles, how much is for?
$5,000.
5,000. And who would be, like, if there's more waste receptacles downtown, who's in charge of like emptying those?
City.
Let's see.
The city?
I assume that's us.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do we empty the ones that are there now?
They're on a bond, they empty it, what, once a week, or I've seen them.
There's 4 or 5 of them.
Is that like Park and Rec then, or who's
No,
it?
it's garbage.
Garbage?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's, okay. Just curious, like, if that, is that an
Park and-
additional expense that we're not considering as
Park and
well?
Rec does parks.
Yeah. Okay.
SBDC, at the Air Valley Tech Park.
I don't wanna fund them.
We do give them a room there for no rent.
Right.
They've requested $10,000
What?
for their small business development. They did provide a breakdown. East Grand Forks sponsorship last year, or 2022 was $10,000. City of Crookston was 10,000. Northwest Minnesota Foundation, 49,000. UMC and
Radine.
Radine, 60,000, for a total budget of $129,000. They've asked for their 10,000 again this year. I know that there are cities that they provide services to that do not contribute to that.
And with that being said, the city hasn't given it to them the last few years. We've given it to Cheetah,
Cheetah
and
gave it.
Cheetah's decided whether they give it to them or not. And
But this-
that's what we should find out, if Cheetah wants to give them anything this year. If they don't, then we shouldn't.
I just wanna know for the money that we've gave for the
Yeah.
last few years, if we've been getting our bang for our buck.
I have no
Well, the
idea.
whole problem with that is we were told that within 3 years they were gonna
Yeah.
be self-sufficient on their feet, and I haven't seen it yet, so.
So
Well, and
I'm just curious, I'd like, I've talked to Christine and everything is confidential.
I've asked her as well, could you provide me specific data about the number of referrals you made to the city, the number of employees that resulted from that, and I was told that information is confidential. I cannot disclose that.
Yeah.
And I don't
And
know
I will say also, I struggle
Money.
with
Doesn't make sense.
Thief River not providing any funding and knowing that there's definitely a lot of activity going on in that area. I mean, I just wonder how much effort is being made.
There it is, bang for your buck.
Right.
Anyway, that's their request.
Okay.
And then wellness in the woods.
I have no idea.
Well, I can
Wellness-
I
wellness.
followed up today with this Victor fella, he's a former employee of Aluma. And I asked him what services there were, because we just got a tax return. Mental health services would be provided at no charge. They are not direct services in the sense of a person coming into your home or meeting. They are over the internet, and they are phone, 24-hour service. They're asking for $5,000 for marketing, to help with marketing. It is peer-led. I don't know if their peers are certified or not.
I believe so, correct? She
Yeah.
said they were certified.
Okay. And he gave me the name of Sarah Reese, so I called and said she had just received information about them last week. She hadn't had a chance to do anything in terms of follow-up, but they do show tax returns of income of $697,000 on various sources, yes.
Are they housed out of
No,
Lumen's building?
no,
or-
they're out of, I think it is Eagle Bend, Eagle Bend, Minnesota, which I think is down near First Falls or south of that.
South of
Do you have
Wadena.
any input on it? Any idea, thoughts?
I think that, they are certified providers, they're people with lived experience that have had mental health or addiction issues that are trying to reach out and connect with other people. I think the challenge is that there are other peer-led organizations that are in the region as well.
Yeah.
And so when I think about the, opportunity or what that perception might be from the city of receiving those funds, when there's other entities that do the same thing,
That's a lot of money.
what's that impact? There are already some of those resources available within the community.
And
I
I
just-
asked him if that would not be
$697.
Yeah.
And he said some of it is and some of it isn't. They just stressed that they were available 24/7, but Aluma is as well.
Yeah. I also do wonder for the significant amount of health, mental health issues and crisis, that there isn't a lot of other opportunities for finding funding, whether that be through grants or something for something similar to
Well, if
this.
it's marketing, let's put it in our website.
I mean, I think there's definitely some ways that we can be good partners without providing a cost. Can I just go back 1 minute too? I just also want to point out for the SBDC that it would be $10,000 plus the.
Free room.
Yeah, and so we are providing above and beyond too. So keeping that in mind as we make those decisions.
If you wanna know, we just rented, the same square footage of space for $400 a month in the Valley Tech Park to a different individual, so 12 times 400 is 40, and it's $5,000.
Yeah.
Of value.
Yeah.
One thing that is not on here that I expected to see, that I didn't see was provision for the fireworks for Oxcart Days. Done 6,000, as a city for that, but I did not get a request from her.
How did you go about getting these? I mean, how did they, this wellness thing, how did they know about it?
I have no idea how they found out about it, none at all. It's on our website.
You did reach out to everybody who's applied in the past, though, is that not correct? I thought that,
Yes.
like, last year, you applied, okay.
I've never heard of them. That's what
No,
I'm saying.
I hadn't either.
There's
That's
no
why I
request
called
that came through here ever.
But, you know, we did, you know, put it on our Facebook page and advertise so that we weren't signaling anybody out by just sending letters to just certain.
Anybody could apply.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, yeah, it is.